Chapter 865. There was an ancient blood pool under the illusory altar that was heavily sealed. The blood pool contained the remnant souls of 1 billion true dragon demon cultivators. They provided energy for the blood pool and nourished the 7-colored light at the bottom of the pool. These remnant souls had hollow eyes, and most of their cultivation bases were at the first step. Only 6,000 of them had the aura of the second step. Since the First Realm War, every time an expert from the True Dragon clan died in the savage ancient land, a trace of their remnant soul would be absorbed into the blood pool. This blood pool was called the Ancestral Soul Pool. It was the place where the True Dragon clan nurtured their secret treasure. As the seal on the ancient blood pool was lifted, a 7-colored light flew out from the bottom of the pool. The ordinary demon cultivators could not see what the light was at all. When the light soared into the sky, a terrifying aura that could take away one's soul immediately pressed down on the entire illusory altar. There was a straw doll on the illusory altar that was covered in a bloody light. There was an old man with purple hair and dragon horns standing 30 feet away from the straw doll. He was Patriarch Dulong. There were more than 100 demon cultivators from the dragon clan standing behind Patriarch Dulong. All of them had a cultivation base at the second step. However, the instant the aura descended, all the demon cultivators except for Patriarch Dulong turned red. They felt a heavy pressure as if they were being suppressed by a mountain. They knelt down toward the light one after another. Only then did the aura decrease slightly. The aura continued to spread to the entire Twilight Snow barbaric domain. All the demon cultivators in the domain, regardless of whether they were from the True Dragon clan or not, could not withstand the aura and knelt down in the snow that filled the sky. Is this the aura of the ancestral Bao spirit? How terrifying! Countless demon cultivators lowered their heads in fear and trepidation. They did not dare to look at the light. Even Patriarch Dulong, who was an immortal venerable, did not dare to be disrespectful when he looked at the light. Patriarch Dulong, who had always been arrogant, actually bowed to the ground at the light and said respectfully, "Junior, Dulongzi pleads for the ancestral Bao to appear. Do you want to borrow my strength to kill people again? Think about how glorious I was in the past. I followed the ancestral dragon to conquer the world, and all the immortals I killed were ancient immortals. But now, I only have spirit bodies left and I have to kill those juniors like Du Zhen and Shikong. I'm as lonely as snow. My life is really as lonely as snow." In the snowy sky above, the rainbow light receded to reveal a longbow with dragon horns that was covered in purplish golden scales. The body of the bow was like a crescent moon, and there were several gem-like dragon pearls embedded in it. The bowstring was silver in color, and it was flashing with a cold light. The one who spoke was the dragon horn longbow. Upon hearing the dragon horn longbow's words, Du Longzi smiled bitterly, but he did not dare to interrupt. "Hee, I'm in a good mood today, so I'll help you this once. Junior, do you know what price you have to pay to borrow this old man's power?" Ancestor Poison Dragon respectfully replied, "After I kill this person, I will offer 1,000 human female cultivators to the ancestral soul pond for you to enjoy." "Hee, you are indeed sensible." The dragon horn longbow no longer spoke. With a slight tremble, it immediately lost its ability to float and fell down. Ancestor Poison Dragon did not dare to be negligent. He immediately bent his palm and caught the longbow. When he looked at the scarecrow again, his eyes were filled with a cold light. "Ghostface, today is the day you die. One true and one illusion. Torch Dragon appears." Ancestor Poison Dragon held the longbow in one hand and made a hand seal with the other. He muttered an incantation, and a million zhang long shadow of an ice dragon immediately appeared in the snowy sky. The cold chi that was emitted from the shadow caused the ground of the entire Twilight Snow barbaric domain to freeze 3 feet. Every breath of the ice dragon emitted a chilling pressure. In front of this shadow, all the demon cultivators seemed so tiny. The ice dragon's cold demonic chi spread out of the Twilight Snow barbaric domain and spread all the way to the entire wilderness. At this moment, snowflakes began to fall in the entire 42 barbaric domains of the wilderness. In the Heaven Capital barbaric domain, 6 Unity Immortal Venerate raised his eyelids and shook his head disapprovingly. The candle bow has appeared. I'm afraid that Wuming Shikong won't be able to escape death. On another short mountain nearby, Immortal Venerate Miao Yin had already set up an altar. She held the yellow immortal talisman in one hand and the acquired peachwood sword in the other. Her beautiful eyes were filled with a hint of seriousness. Poison Dragon has still decided to use the candle bow. I wonder if I can stop him from killing with my abilities. In the 5 regions of the god race, countless cultivators of the 4 heavens walked out of their cave dwellings. Their eyes were filled with shock when they saw the falling snow. There was no snow in the southern region. If the falling snow appeared, it would definitely be the candle bow that would kill with 7 arrows. Sigh. It seems like the matter of Senior Wuming annihilating the poisonous dragon guards has angered Ancestor Poison Dragon. Now that the 7 Arrows book is out, that Senior Shikong will be in danger. In the Mulan city, Ning Fan, who was sitting cross-legged and refining the true and illusion power, suddenly opened his eyes. He naturally sensed the falling snow outside. The 7 illusionary arrows. Are they coming? Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. He walked out of his cave dwelling and ordered Lu Yen and Immortal Loli to stay in the city. Then, he rode on a golden rainbow and flew to a wasteland that was filled with skeletons in the North Star barbaric domain. He couldn't avoid what should come. He was going to face old Ancestor Poison Dragon's 7 Arrows book at this place. It was a battle between Ning Fan and old Ancestor Poison Dragon that had crossed countless barbaric domains. The Arrow book shows its spirit. Old Ancestor Poison Dragon took out a jade book from his storage pouch and tossed it to the sky. Then he made a hand seal. That jade book only had 7 pages. Each page was a 7-colored arrow that could be used together with the dragon horn longbow to kill people across 10,000 domains. Ghostface die. Old Ancestor Poison Dragon's furious voice spread across the entire Twilight Snow barbaric domain. He bent his palm and one of the pages of the jade book immediately turned into a 7-colored arrow that was sometimes real and sometimes illusory, flying into old Ancestor Poison Dragon's hand. When the silver string was released, the true and illusion world was born. The 7-colored light shone and the killing intent descended. Old Ancestor Poison Dragon drew his bow and shot an arrow at the filthy bloodgrassman. The 7-colored arrow light left the bowstring and pierced through the filthy bloodgrassman. All of a sudden, the arrow light disappeared. Ning Fan, who was far away in the North Star barbaric domain, instantly felt an unprecedented sense of danger. The snowy sky above his head suddenly tore open a pitch-black spatial crack and a ray of 7-colored arrow light pierced through the air. At the moment when the 7-colored arrow light approached him, Ning Fan felt an unprecedented sense of danger. It was as if he was not facing an arrow shadow but a gigantic dragon that was looking down upon the common people. The arrow light was too fast. Before Ning Fan could react, he already felt a sharp pain in his chest. The arrow light had already pierced through his body. The moment he was hit by the arrow, his face immediately turned pale. He coughed out a mouthful of blood and was forced to retreat. If ordinary cultivators like Du Zhen and Shikong are hit by this arrow, they would be severely injured even if they don't die. However, Ning Fan was not Du Zhen. Even though this arrow had caused him injuries, it was not as severe as he imagined. Black Star Technique. Ning Fan raised his hand and pointed at the sky. Immediately, 83,000 pitch-black stars appeared in the snowy sky. Under the shine of the black starlight, the bloody hole on Ning Fan's chest healed bit by bit. His injuries were completely healed in an instant. However, rays of 7-colored light were wreaking havoc inside his body. They were left behind by the 7-colored arrow. To true immortals who had crossed the true bridge, the 7-colored light was extremely destructive. It could destroy the true bridge, destroy one's Tao cultivation and take away one's life. However, to cultivators like Ning Fan who had never crossed the true bridge, it did not cause too much damage. It only made him feel a little dizzy. What a powerful arrow light. If I have already attained the Duzhen realm, even if I don't die under this arrow, I would certainly be severely injured and on the verge of death. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn. He scanned his surroundings, but he did not find the seven-colored arrow that had pierced through his body. The arrow had already returned to old ancestor Du Long's hand. Like a Dao weapon, he could retrieve it with just a thought. The arrow had already flown away. Suddenly, waves of immortal music resounded in the snowy sky. Then, a gigantic shadow of a 1,000-armed deity appeared. It raised its hand and grabbed at the direction where the arrow light was shot from. Ning Fan's eyes changed slightly. This immortal music and the shadow of the deity seemed to be cast by a powerful cultivator with the purpose of protecting him. It's the chi of immortal venerable Wangu. It's coming from the direction of the heaven capital barbarian domain. Is it the human race's immortal venerable Wangu who wants to help me resist the 7 arrows? I wonder who it is. It's a pity that the arrow light of the 7-arrow book is too fast. It couldn't be defended by this person. What a powerful 7-arrow book. Even immortal venerable Wangu couldn't defend against it. In a faraway place, venerable Miao Yen, who was casting her technique, was shocked. So fast. Even with my casting speed, I can't stop the arrow light. But fortunately, that nameless cultivator didn't seem to be killed by the arrow. Next time, I will definitely stop the arrow light. In the heaven capital barbarian domain, 6 Unity Immortal Venerable shook his head slightly. He already knew that venerable Miao Yen wouldn't be able to stop the 7-colored arrow. But to his surprise, that nameless cultivator of mysterious origin wasn't killed by the arrow. Since ancient times, there aren't many Duzh and Shikong cultivators who survived a single arrow from the 7-arrow book. This person should be proud of himself for surviving after taking a single arrow. Unfortunately, when the 3 arrows are shot at the same time, this person will certainly die even if he has the cultivation base of a peak Shikong. 6 Unity Immortal Venerable muttered to himself indifferently. In the Twilight Snow Barbarian domain, old ancestor poisonous dragon harumphed coldly on the illusory true altar. The bloody light on the straw doll had yet to disperse. He didn't expect that Ning Fan could survive after taking a single arrow. Can't I kill this kid with just the power of a single arrow? 3 truths and 3 illusions. Li Zhu Ning. As old ancestor poisonous dragon changed his hand seal, the gigantic shadow of the ice dragon in the sky immediately turned into the shadow of an ancient copper lamp. On the copper lamp, there was an unlit candle made from the fat of the demon dragon. As the shadow changed, the aura force of the dragon horn longbow immediately skyrocketed. Old ancestor poisonous dragon bent his palm and waved. Another 2 pages of the jade book turned into 7-colored arrow light. Together with the previous arrow light, 3 arrows were shot out by old ancestor poisonous dragon. At the same time, on the wasteland of bones, Ning Fan's heart was filled with warning signs. At this moment, 3 spatial rifts were torn open in the snowy sky and 3 rays of 7-colored arrow light flashed from them. Even with Ning Fan's cultivation base, he still couldn't defend himself in time. However, this time, venerated Miao Yen summoned the 1,000 Arms God's Will and blocked in front of Ning Fan. The 1,000 Arms God's Will was too slow to catch the arrow light. However, it tried to stop the arrow light with its body. The 3 arrow light were blocked by the gigantic shadow of the God's Will in front of Ning Fan. The gigantic shadow of the God's Will was one of venerated Miao Yan's abilities. Even an attack from an ancient immortal venerable might not be able to break the defense of the God's Will. However, the 3 arrow lights seemed to be able to directly penetrate the gigantic shadow and penetrate Ning Fan's body, leaving 3 bloody holes on his chest. Damn it! I can't stop it! Venerated Miao Yen bit her lips unwillingly. All of a sudden she looked surprised. Oh, the 3 7-colored true illusion arrows actually couldn't kill that cultivator? Knowing that her ability could not stop the descent of the 7-colored arrows, venerated Miao Yen sighed softly and withdrew her ability. Her face was filled with regret. So what if Ning Fan didn't die from the 3 arrows? When the 5th arrow is shot, he would most likely still die. I can't help him. What a pity! Venerated Miao Yen sighed faintly. He didn't die after the 3 arrows were shot at the same time? Strange. But if the 5th arrow is shot, there's no way he can survive. Venerated 6 Unity Immortal finally opened her eyes and frowned. On the True Illusion sacrificial altar, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon withdrew the 3 7-colored arrows and stared at the straw doll whose bloody light had yet to disperse. Behind him, the demonic cultivators all looked shocked. The person whom Old Ancestor wants to kill didn't die from the 3 True Illusion arrows. Many of the demon cultivators were secretly shocked. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's expression turned slightly unsightly. He didn't expect that even the 3 arrows from the 7 Arrows book couldn't kill Ningfan. Since ancient times, there had never been any Du Zhen or Shikong who could survive the attack of the 3 7-colored arrows. Could it be that this person isn't Shikong but Broken Thought? No, it can't be. If it's Broken Thought, my 7-colored arrows wouldn't be able to hurt him. But he didn't die. Perhaps this person has some divine ability to protect his life. Is Miao Yan helping him? Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon directly attributed the reason why Ningfan didn't die to venerated Miao Yan. He naturally didn't expect that Ningfan wasn't a Du Zhen cultivator at all. This was the reason why he didn't die after being shot by the 3 arrows. So what if Miao Yan helped him? He still can't escape the fate of death. 5 True Illusions. Candle Flame Ignite. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon changed his hand's seal again. The shadow of the candle in the sky suddenly lit up with a pale golden demonic flame. The aura of the Dragonhorn longbow rose again. This time, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon took 5 7-colored arrows and shot them at the same time. This time, the arrow light carried scorching heat. On the Wasteland of Bones, Ningfan had just used the Black Star technique to heal the bloody hole in his chest. The shadow of the 1,000-armed god in the sky was fading away bit by bit. Ningfan knew that the Immortal Venerable knew that he couldn't stop the arrow light, so he retracted his shadow. Even that Immortal Venerable couldn't stop the 7-colored arrows. Fortunately, I'm not a Du Zhen cultivator. Otherwise, I would have died after taking 3 arrows and the collapse of the True Determination Bridge. 5 spatial cracks suddenly appeared in the sky, shooting out 5 rays of arrow light. As soon as the arrow light appeared, the demonic flame immediately ignited in the sky. Green light flickered in Ningfan's eyes. Before the spatial cracks appeared, he had already stretched out his palm and made a premonition, making a grabbing motion in front of him. At the next moment, 4 rays of sword light pierced through Ningfan's chest, but one of the arrow light was caught by Ningfan's hand. The arrow light that venerated Miao Yan couldn't catch in time was actually caught by Ningfan. Unfortunately, the arrow light that was caught by Ningfan trembled and broke free from Ningfan's palm. It pierced through his shoulder, leaving a bloody hole where white bones could be seen. Even if Ningfan wasn't Du Zhen, the injuries he suffered from the 5 arrows couldn't be ignored. The wounds on the arrows were burning with purplish-golden demonic flames, preventing Ningfan's wounds from healing. Even the Black Star technique could only slightly suppress the demonic flames. It could not heal them at all. Ningfan tried to extinguish the demonic flames on his wounds, but to his surprise, he realized that he could not put them out. This is the Samsara fire. Ningfan sucked in a breath of cold air. From the demonic flames, he sensed a trace of Samsara power. It was very weak, but it couldn't be ignored. After withdrawing his astonished expression, Ningfan's eyes turned grim. He activated a trace of Samsara power in his body and finally extinguished the demonic flames. At this moment, the 5 bloody holes on his body began to heal bit by bit under the black starlight. This young man actually didn't get burned to death by the flame of the candle, bow and arrow. Venerated Miao Yan's mouth was slightly agape. She was so shocked that she could not close her mouth. She had never seen any cultivator who could resist the flame of the candle, bow and arrow. If it wasn't because the candle bow only had its bow spirit left, even an immortal venerated like her would find it hard to resist the flame of the candle, bow and arrow. This time, the 6 Unity Immortal venerated Miao Yan's expression finally changed. He took a step out of the cave and stood in the snowy sky. At this moment, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon looked at the filthy blood grass in disbelief. His expression was extremely unpleasant. Impossible! Even with Miao Yan's help, It's impossible for this young man to survive the flame of the arrow. Why didn't he die? Moreover, my 7-colored true illusion arrows actually sensed something. At the moment the arrows fell, one of the 7-colored arrows was actually caught by this young man's palm. Even ordinary immortal venerated immortals couldn't catch the light of the arrow. How did this young man manage to catch it? Is this a coincidence, or did he predict the path of the 7-colored arrow? All along, old ancestor poisonous dragon had been looking down on Ning Fan. After all, there was a huge gap between their cultivation bases. However, at this moment, that look of disdain gradually faded and was replaced by an even more stubborn killing intent. I don't believe that this young man can still survive after firing 7 arrows at the same time. 7 truths, 7 illusions. Candle flame extinguish. The shadow of the candle flame was extinguished at this moment, emitting a deathly chi that felt like the end of the world. At this moment, all 7 pages of the jade booklet turned into 7-colored arrow light and were shot out by old ancestor poisonous dragon. When the 7 arrows were fired at the same time, the white snow in the sky above the barbarian region turned black. An unprecedented sense of danger rose in Ning Fan's heart. This time, he did not even see the spatial crack clearly, and his body was penetrated by the 7 arrows. He first felt the feeling of being penetrated. Then he saw the scene of the spatial crack and the arrows being shot out. The blood that flowed out of the 7 bloody holes on his body was all black. The raging black arrow chi spread inside Ning Fan's body, crazily taking away all of his life force. His face began to age and his skin began to wrinkle. Death chi constantly spread out from his body. The 7 arrows did not cause any damage to Ning Fan, but they left a fatal death chi in Ning Fan's body. The samsara power in the death chi was a few times stronger than the samsara power in Ning Fan's body. It was beyond the range that Ning Fan could withstand. This young man will probably die under the death chi of the 7 arrows. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerable muttered to himself with a firm tone. However, at the next moment, his eyes widened and he sucked in a cold breath. The black snow that engulfed the entire barbarian region collapsed at this moment. On the wasteland of bones, Ning Fan gave up the idea of using the samsara power to resist the samsara death chi. His eyes flashed with a hint of scarlet. His body emitted a sizzling aurora light. The samsara power in his body was not enough to resist the samsara death chi. Thus, he used the tribulation sense power that was at the same level as him to resist the samsara power. Relying on the tribulation sense power in his body, Ning Fan directly swallowed the samsara death chi into his bloodline and refined it. At the moment when the death chi dissipated, Ning Fan's appearance returned to normal. The 7 wounds on his body healed under the black starlight. As for the black snow that covered the sky, it collapsed at this moment. So what if I shoot 7 arrows at the same time? Ning Fan flicked his finger and 7 rays of black and red aurora light immediately shot out from his finger, landing on the 7 arrow shadows that were about to retreat. It's prediction again. Normally, the arrow shadows would not be damaged by ordinary attacks. However, after being hit by the barbaric flash, tiny cracks immediately appeared on them. When the 7 arrows returned to old ancestor poisonous dragon's hand, his eyes were filled with astonishment. Ning Fan had continuously predicted the return route of the 7 arrows and displayed the barbaric flash, which was purer than that of a savage beast, causing damage to the 7 arrows. How is this possible? I shot 7 arrows at the same time, but they still failed to kill him. Instead, the arrows were damaged by him. Could it be that I can't kill him even with the power of the 7 arrows book? I don't believe it. Old ancestor poisonous dragon's eyes were filled with astonishment. He actually became absent-minded for a moment. At the next moment, his eyes flashed with hesitation, as if there was something that he could not decide on. After a few breaths, he let out a cold and sinister laugh. I didn't expect that there would actually be someone in this world who could resist the 7 arrows book head-on. Since I can't kill you, I will kill your closest kin. No matter what, I must vent this hatred in my heart. Ancestor Bao, please help me. Old ancestor poisonous dragon took out the longbow made of dragon horn. In the seven-colored light, the longbow turned into the appearance of a hunchbacked old man. "Junior, are you sure you want to use this method to deal with a human ant?" The hunchbacked old man picked his ears with a wretched expression. "I'm sure. Ancestor Bao, please help me," Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon said with killing intent. "But since that's the case, I will help you. Swallow." The hunchbacked old man suddenly opened his mouth and swallowed the seven-colored true illusion arrows into his stomach. Then he raised his hand and grabbed at the ancestral soul pond below the altar. He actually extracted all the 1 billion remnant souls in the pond and fused them into his body. At the next moment, the hunchbacked old man turned into a ray of seven-colored aurora and shot towards the grassy figure. As soon as the seven-colored aurora shot into the grassy figure's body, it immediately tore the space apart and appeared in the sky above the wasteland of bones. A trace of Ning Fan's blood that spilled on the ground was absorbed by the seven-colored aurora. The seven-colored aurora turned into a longbow made of dragon horn. On the silver string, there were 7 arrow shadows aimed at the void space. Instead of aiming at Ning Fan, the arrows were aimed at his closest kin. The 7 Arrows book could kill people across 10,000 regions. Since the bow had already absorbed Ning Fan's blood, it could shoot the 7 arrows consecutively with the help of its senses. It was enough to kill 7 of Ning Fan's closest kin. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon couldn't use this ability. Only the bow's spirit could use it. Green light flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. What surprised him was that the 7 arrows were not aimed at him. At the next moment, Ning Fan's eyes were filled with unimaginable anger. After absorbing a trace of his blood, the 7 arrows actually had a trace of the chi of the Rain World's realm force. Ning Fan suddenly felt his heart palpitate. These 7 arrows were not going to attack him. Instead, they were going to attack his closest kin and his lover in the Rain World. The longbow made a human-like, contemptuous laugh. That laugh was slightly surprised. "Hee hee. Once this arrow is shot, this junior's closest kin will certainly die. I wonder which one of the 4 heavens will this junior's closest kin be." The longbow let out a cold laugh. Of course, it didn't know that the direction of the arrows was not the 4 heavens but the mortal world. Unfortunately, it didn't have the chance to shoot the arrows because a reckless figure had already stood in front of the 7 arrows. That figure's eyes were like a devil's and his killing intent was like the ice of the 9 nether worlds. "If you dare to shoot this arrow, I will bury the entire True Dragon clan with you." The moment this voice fell, the space around the dragon horn longbow seemed to freeze and was forcefully locked in place. Countless black lines shot out from the void. All of them were condensed from the power of the void, binding the longbow tightly. This was the heaven sealing technique that Ning Fan used after comprehending the prestige secret art and the force secret art. It was just to stop the 7 arrows from being shot out. At the next moment, Ning Fan activated the power of the brutal flash. It turned into a giant black-red claw and grabbed the longbow fiercely, almost breaking the longbow into 2. The longbow let out a miserable shriek. In great shock, it tried to break free from the control of the black lines and the giant black-red claw, but it realized that it couldn't break free at all. As soon as the longbow was trapped, the brutal flash turned into a barrier under the activation of the force secret art, imprisoning the longbow and the 7 arrows. What imprisoned the longbow was not only the power of the brutal flash but also an unimaginably terrifying demonic power that was like burning obsession. How is this possible? Even an immortal emperor won't be able to stop me from shooting an arrow when I personally take action. How could this young man stop me? Wait. This is the aura force of ancestral blood. This young man actually has ancestral level demon blood in his body and he actually ignited it. Is he crazy? He actually ignited his ancestral blood. On the illusory true altar, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's eyes widened. He was too shocked that he could not speak. Even the 2 immortal venerables, Miao Yen and Lu Ha, certainly could not understand how Ning Fan could capture the Bao spirit of the ancestral Bao. However, Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon saw some clues. Heaven sealing technique. The ancestral blood of the Fu Li clan. This young man has actually cultivated the strongest secret technique of the Eastern demon ancestor. Moreover, this young man is actually a Fu Li clan demon ancestor who possesses the ancestral blood. In order to stop the ancestral bow from shooting, he actually ignited his ancestral blood and displayed the heaven sealing technique. This man is a madman. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon could not imagine why there would be a demon cultivator with ancestral blood like Ning Fan in the four heavens. Moreover, he even belonged to the forbidden Fu Li clan. Moreover, he could not imagine that Ning Fan would actually be so crazy to stop the ancestral bow without hesitating to sacrifice a drop of ancestral blood. Ancestral blood. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon was one of the demon ancestors of the True Dragon clan. The grade of his demon blood was also at the ancestral level. However, he only had a drop of ancestral blood. If it was him, he certainly would not be willing to ignite his ancestral blood. However, Ning Fan was willing to do so, because Ning Fan had already gone mad. In the sky above the wasteland of bones, Ning Fan's eyes burst out with terrifying killing intent. He directly ignited a drop of ancestral blood of the Fu Li clan and burned it to ashes. With his current cultivation base, he was not able to stop the ancestral bow at all. Forcefully stopping the ancestral bow would result in an extremely terrifying backlash that directly injured him. However, when he saw that the ancestral bow was trying to harm his kin in the rain world, he did not hesitate to sacrifice a drop of ancestral blood and displayed the heaven-sealing technique that was beyond his limit. He would not allow the ancestral bow to shoot out these 7 arrows. Absolutely not. Ning Fan could tolerate Du Longzi using the 7 arrows book to deal with him. After all, since they were enemies, he should naturally resort to all means. However, Du Longzi should not have targeted Ning Fan's kin. Everyone had an inviolable forbidden place. Du Longzi had touched Ning Fan's reverse scale. Once his blood was ignited, he must make Du Longzi pay the price. By the order of the Fu Li demon ancestor, demon arrows, break. Ning Fan shouted. Immediately, a gigantic shadow of a black butterfly appeared between heaven and earth. The might of the ancestral blood turned heaven and earth upside down. As soon as this aura force spread out, the layer of demon power defense on the surface of the 7 arrows immediately cracked. Bang! The power of the calamity blood in Ning Fan's body was pushed to its limit. The barbaric flash pierced through the 7 arrows and penetrated their insides, causing them to explode from the inside out, causing the 7 seven-colored arrows that were suppressed to collapse one after another. When the 7 arrows collapsed, 7 rays of arrow light immediately dispersed and tried to escape. However, Ning Fan sneered and swallowed them into his stomach. The 7-colored arrow spirit, huh? What an unexpected gain. You won't be able to escape. What Ning Fan swallowed into his stomach was actually the 7-colored arrow spirit among the 7 rays of arrow light. As Ning Fan activated his tribulation sense, the spiritual consciousness of the arrow spirit was directly erased. Ordinary divine abilities might not be able to do this, but the power of tribulation will could. Bang, bang, bang. At the moment when the spiritual consciousness of the 7 arrow spirits was erased, old ancestor Du Long felt as if he was hit by an invisible giant fist. He retreated from the illusory true altar and suffered a backlash. The 7 true 7 illusion arrow was actually destroyed. My 7 truth 7 illusionary arrows were actually destroyed by an ant. My 7-colored arrow spirit was actually taken away by an ant. Old ancestor Du Long's furious roar spread across the entire Twilight Snow barbaric domain. He had never expected that his 7 true 7 illusion arrow would be destroyed by Ning Fan. Even an ancient immortal venerate should not have the ability to destroy an arrow. What does this young man have? Where did his barbaric flash power come from? He is not a savage beast at all. Even if he is, he should not have such a pure barbaric flash power. At this moment, the dragon horn ancestral bow felt fear towards a junior for the first time in its life. Currently, it was trapped by the barbaric flash barrier. It had tried several times, but it still could not escape. If it tries to break through the barrier by force, it would be killed by the barbaric flash barrier. Human ant! How dare you! Not only did you destroy the Seven Arrows book, but you even set up a barrier to trap me. Do you know who I am? If you dare to touch a single hair of mine, what awaits you will be the wrath of the entire True Dragon clan. Let me go at once. Otherwise, noisy! Ning Fan's eyes flashed with cold light. He clenched his 5 fingers and the barbaric flash barrier immediately shrunk, turning into lines of black and red runes that were engraved on the ancestral bow. Immediately, the ancestral bow let out a miserable shriek like a pig being slaughtered. Gradually, it was sealed by the runes of the barbaric flash and could no longer make any sound. Once again, he used his demon spiritual power to plant a restriction on the ancestral bow. Then, he raised his hand and kept the completely sealed ancestral bow into his storage pouch. The spirit of the ancestral bow was directly sealed and taken away by him. Using the heaven sealing technique, setting up a barrier with the barbaric flash barrier, destroying the 7 true 7 illusion arrow and sealing the ancestral bow. A series of actions were all completed in just a few breaths. Ning Fan's cold eyes looked towards the direction of the Northern Territory. With the might of his ancestral blood, he seemed to be able to see through everything and directly saw old ancestor Du Long, who was standing on the illusion altar. Son of the poisonous dragon, I will remember what you did to me today. I will certainly take revenge in the future. A wave of fully ancestral demon aura spread across the 7 regions of the demon race. Countless demon cultivators with low cultivation bases were directly pressed to the ground by this aura force. They could not move at all and their eyes were filled with fear. This voice kept reverberating in old ancestor Du Long's ears, forming a series of demon power storms that exploded in his sea of consciousness. In terms of the aura force of his demon blood alone, Ning Fan was far superior to old ancestor Du Long. The latter only had a single drop of true dragon ancestral blood while Ning Fan still had 3 drops of demon ancestral blood even if he destroyed 1 drop. Old ancestor Du Long, who had already suffered a backlash, was suddenly attacked. He immediately coughed out blood and retreated. His eyes were filled with shock. He could sense that Ning Fan's cultivation base was not high. He was just a junior. However, with the madness of burning his ancestral blood and the remaining demon aura force of the ancestral blood in his body, Ning Fan actually managed to cross the boundary and hurt him with just a roar. After burning 1 drop of ancestral blood, this person actually still has 3 drops of ancestral blood in his body. How is this possible? The Fu Li clan, which has been extinct for a long time, actually still has such a terrifying demon ancestor left behind. A wave of cold chi suddenly rushed up to the top of his head from beneath his feet, causing old ancestor Du Long, who had a cultivation base at the immortal venerable realm, to tremble. Ning Fan will remember what you did to me today. I will certainly take revenge in the future. It was unknown if he was afraid of Ning Fan's madness after burning his blood or the potential of his demon blood. Or perhaps he was enraged by Ning Fan's crazy actions of destroying the 7 arrows and seizing the ancestral bow. Old ancestor Du Long forcefully calmed his mind. His eyes were filled with killing intent. With a flash, he actually disregarded his injuries and rushed towards the direction of the North Star barbaric region. I must take back the ancestral bow and arrow spirit. I must kill Ning Fan. I must kill this hidden danger in the cradle. At all costs. We must kill this brat. Chapter 866. The land of the wild 42 regions began to tremble, and the roars of ancient beasts could be heard everywhere. The Boorish wasteland was the ancient battlefield of the divine demon realm. It was rumored that every time an ancient immortal unleashed all his killing intent here, such a phenomenon would occur. In the god race's 5 regions, countless cultivators from the 4 heavens looked towards the north, shock in their eyes. They knew that the one who had caused this wild phenomenon was the monster race's immortal sovereign, old ancestor poisonous dragon. They didn't understand why Patriarch Poison Dragon's 7 arrows had caused the snow phenomenon to collapse. They didn't understand why Patriarch Poison Dragon would be so angry, or why he would erupt with such terrifying killing intent that caused the entire wilderness to tremble. In the sky above the heaven capital barbarian domain, the two immortal venerables, Miao Yen and Lu He, had already gathered. Their gazes were solemn. They knew a little more than ordinary people. They knew that Ning Fan was not killed by the Seven Arrows book. However, they did not know why old ancestor Poisonous Dragon would erupt with such a strong killing intent. The two of them did not know about Ning Fan destroying the Seven Arrows and seizing the ancestral bow. Du Longzi has unleashed such a terrifying killing intent towards the Southern Territory. It seems like we can't avoid this confrontation. Is it because the Seven Arrow book can't kill that mysterious Shikong, so he wants to do it himself? I can't stop him from using the Seven Arrow book to kill people, but I can't just watch him commit murder in the 5 regions of the god race. Gaochen barbaric domain, right? Does fellow Taoist Lu He want to go with us? Miao Yen giggled. Of course we have to go. We're under the orders of the Dark Sea sect to guard the 5 regions, so we naturally can't sit idly by and do nothing about what happened today. The 6 combination Celestial Supremacy's eyes were solemn. He was slightly interested in the mysterious Shikong that survived 7 arrows. If I go to the Gaochen barbaric region, I should be able to see the mysterious Shikong with my own eyes. The 2 immortal venerables rushed to the North Star barbaric domain at the same time. 20 breaths later, they arrived at the wasteland of bones where Ning Fan was fighting against the 7 arrows. They spread out their spirit sense and it almost covered the entire North Star barbaric domain. Unfortunately, the 2 of them were still a step too late when they arrived at this place. Ning Fan was nowhere to be found. During these 20 breaths of time, Ning Fan had already returned to the Mulan city with his golden light and brought Lu Yen and the immortal Loli away from the North Star barbaric domain. Dozens of breaths later, Du Longzi, whose face was filled with killing intent, also rushed to the skeleton wasteland. When he saw that there were only 2 immortal venerables of the human race waiting for him and Ning Fan was nowhere to be seen, Du Longzi's expression immediately turned extremely ugly. Along the way, Du Longzi constantly used the reverse spirit technique in an attempt to sense the qi of the ancestral bow and locate Ning Fan's location. However, he realized that he could not do it at all. The ancestral bow was actually sealed by a layer of demonic spiritual energy, blocking his inverse spirit art perception. Damn it! I rushed to the Southern Territory for the 2nd time to capture this child, but I still couldn't catch him. He ran away again. No! This child cannot be allowed to live. The ancestral bow and arrow spirit must be retrieved as well. Even if I have to risk my demon soul being heavily injured, this old man will still find this kid in the wilderness today. Ignoring the 2 human immortal venerables not far away, Patriarch Poison Dragon formed a hand seal in anger, and a demonic shadow flew out of his body. The demonic shadow swayed from 1 to 2, 2 to 4. In an instant, it had split into hundreds of demonic shadows. Every demon shadow was at the early stage of Shishuang Kong. Soul-shattering art. Du Longzi even used this technique. He actually did not hesitate to injure his demon soul to kill that Wuming Shishuang Kong. The 2 human immortal venerables immediately revealed a look of shock. They really wanted to know what Ning Fan had done to make old ancestor Poison Dragon want to kill him even at the cost of damaging his own Dao realm. As soon as the hundreds of demonic shadows appeared, they immediately flew in different directions. Unfortunately, before they could fly far, heaven and earth suddenly froze and formed a barrier, preventing all the demonic shadows from flying out. Are you trying to find that cultivator's whereabouts with these demonic shadows? I won't allow you to harm him. It was Venerable Miao Yen who raised his hand and sealed the heaven and earth of this place. Venerable 6 Unity took out a black jade seal. That jade seal was his Dao weapon. The jade seal grew in the wind and turned into a gigantic seal that blotted out the sky. Suddenly, it fell towards the wilderness, causing the ground to sink 10 zhang. Old ancestor Poison Dragon's face was filled with shock and anger. His figure flashed and he evaded the attack of the jade seal. However, the hundreds of demonic shadows that he created were all smashed into meat paste by the jade seal. Miao Yen, 6 Unity. I must kill that person today. If the 2 of you stop me, I will make you pay the price even if I have to risk everything. Old Ancestor Poison Dragon let out a furious roar filled with reluctance. If it wasn't for Miao Yen and 6 Unity's obstruction, he would certainly be able to find Ning Fan's whereabouts and kill him. Unfortunately, the two of them insisted on stopping him. Could it be that they wanted him to give up on chasing after him? Could they allow Ning Fan to take away the ancestral bow and the arrow spirit? But he was unwilling to give up. I really want to see what kind of price you can make us pay. Venerable Miao Yen giggled and flew forward to fight against Old Ancestor Poison Dragon. The 6 Unity Immortal Venerable's expression was slightly hesitant. However, seeing that Miao Yen had already made her move, he also joined the battle. There was no suspense in this battle. Old Ancestor Poison Dragon was naturally not a match for 2 Immortal Venerables. Even if he was at his peak, he would not be able to fight against 2 Immortal Venerables at the same time. Moreover, the current him was not at his peak. First, he was devoured by the arrow spirit. Then he was injured by Ning Fan's roar. After that, he damaged his own demon soul and used the soul-shattering technique, but it did not work. The battle lasted for half a day. Only then did it come to an end. The 2 Venerables, Miao Yen and 6 Unity, suffered some minor injuries. As for Old Ancestor Poison Dragon, he was severely injured. With no other choice, he temporarily fled back to the Northern Territory. I'm not willing to accept this. That ghost-faced brat. How hateful! How hateful! Give the order. Quickly give the order. I want to place a bounty on this ghost-faced brat in the name of the True Dragon Clan. Anyone who kills him will be rewarded with a semi-finished embryonic emperor pill. Be it the demon cultivators of the desolate lands or the inner world, as long as they can kill this brat, they will all be rewarded. Old Ancestor Poison Dragon's order spread across the entire desolate lands and even to the demon spirit land. Anyone who heard the order could see that Old Ancestor Poison Dragon was truly enraged. The True Dragon Clan was truly enraged. The 9 revolution pills were divided into 4 grades: lead, silver, gold, and emperor. Lead pills and silver pills were not rare pills. Gold pills, however, were extremely precious. As for emperor pills, they were almost peerless treasures that were rarely seen in the world. Even a semi-finished emperor pill was enough to drive countless ancient old monsters crazy. This time, Old Ancestor Poison Dragon represented the True Dragon Clan and secretly placed a bounty on Ning Fan's head with an embryonic emperor pill as the reward. His action directly made some experts of the demon race in the demon spirit land secretly come to the desolate lands. They wanted to find Ning Fan and kill him in exchange for the generous reward of the emperor pill. Old Ancestor Poison Dragon had issued a ban on the matter of the ancestral bow being snatched. Other than the True Dragon Clan, only a few people knew about it. With Miao Yen and 6 Unity's abilities, they naturally had their own channels to find out the ins and outs of the matter. When they found out that Ning Fan was not only not killed by the 7 Arrows book but also destroyed the 7 arrows and snatched the ancestral bow of the True Dragon Clan, the 2 venerables were shocked speechless. No wonder Poison Dragon was so furious. It's fine that the 7 Arrows book was destroyed, but even the Candle Bow's spirit. What an interesting little fellow. I really want to meet him. Unfortunately, even with my abilities, I can't find out his current whereabouts. Venerable's Miao Yen smiled with a hint of regret. The Candle Bow's spirit? To the True Dragon Clan, this bow holds a great significance. This bow has a spirit. Even ordinary venerables can't restrain this bow and snatch it. That Junior actually snatched this bow. 6 Unity Immortal Venerables wore a solemn expression. Even with his conceited personality, he could not help but admire the means of that mysterious Junior. However, I heard that Junior released the demon aura of the Fu Li clan that day and suppressed countless demon cultivators in the northern region. Moreover, that aura was the aura of the ancestral blood. I wonder if it's true or not. No, this news should be fake. Occasionally, some devil cultivators would be bestowed with an immortal position by chance. However, it's impossible for a demon cultivator to obtain the recognition of an immortal position at the end of the world. This junior's immortal position can't be faked. Since he has an immortal position, he's a human cultivator no matter what. He can't be a demon cultivator. The ancestral blood and demon aura that he released should be unleashed by borrowing the power of an external object. He can't be a demon cultivator himself. Demon cultivators kept sneaking into the 5 regions of the god race and searching the entire desolate lands, trying to find the whereabouts of that ghost-faced cultivator and kill him. However, none of the demons could find the whereabouts of that ghost-profound realm cultivator and kill him for the reward. It was obvious that Ning Fan was still in the desolate lands before the realm gate would appear in 10 years. However, no one could find his hiding place. Ning Fan was still in the desolate lands. After that battle, he kept the ghost-faced cultivator and brought Lu Yen and immortal Loli to the unconquered barbarian regions. He did not stay in the 5 regions of the god race. He no longer had the appearance of a silver-haired ghost-faced cultivator. Instead, he roamed the unconquered barbarian regions with the identity of a barbarian. After all, he was not a match for old ancestor Poisonous Dragon. Even if he ignited his ancestral blood, he could only cause insignificant injuries to old ancestor Poisonous Dragon. Sacrificing a drop of ancestral blood to block the arrow light of the ancestral bow was a huge price to pay. However, Ning Fan did not regret it. The reason why he cultivated the Dao was to protect the warmth behind his back. If he could not protect it, what was the use of having ancestral blood? Even though he had sacrificed a drop of ancestral blood, his gains were also quite substantial. In this battle, Ning Fan had obtained the Bao spirit of the ancestral Bao and 7 7-colored arrow spirits. In the unconquered barbarian region, there was a barbarian city called Bienliang in the 8th region. On the official road 20 li away from Bienliang City, more than 10 carriages were cautiously moving towards the city. The people who were riding on these carriages were barbarians without any cultivation base. They had just fled from another barbarian city to Bienliang City with their entire families. One of the carriages was decorated lavishly with gold and silver carvings. The owner of the carriages was sitting on it while the other carriages were occupied by servants and guards. The owner of the carriages was called Zhao Boyong. He was nearly 30 years old and was a great scholar in Xiufu City. 3 days ago, the barbarian statue of Xiufu City was destroyed and the entire city was massacred by the wild beasts. Only a few people managed to escape alive. The Zhao family was considered lucky as they managed to escape. At this moment, Zhao Boyong sighed continuously while comforting a young woman who had a sorrowful expression. She was his wife. In her arms was a sleeping baby who was smiling sweetly. He was already half a year old. "My condolences, my wife." Zhao Boyong held his wife's hand and let out a long sigh without saying a word. As a barbarian, one must be prepared to die at any time. After comforting the beautiful woman, Zhao Boyong walked out of the carriage. He lowered his voice and asked the guard who was driving the carriage, "Zhao-san, how far are we from Bienliang City?" "Master, we are on the official road. We will arrive in about 20 li," the burly man named Zhao-san answered in a low voice. He did not dare to raise his voice. No one dared to speak loudly outside the barbarian city. Once they attracted the attacks of the wild beasts, the consequences would be unimaginable. 20 li? Another 20 li and we will be safe. Another 20 li. Sigh, if we have the barbarian god Jade pendant, we don't need to be so cautious. Zhao Boyang's heart was filled with anxiety. To be exact, all the people on the carriage were nervous. Xiufu City was destroyed and they were the only survivors. If they could reach Bienliang City, they would be considered to have survived. If they were attacked by the wild beasts before entering the city, surviving would be an extravagant hope. "Don't worry, master. I have traveled back and forth between Xiufu and Bienliang City several times. Based on my experience, we will be safe once we reach the official road. There won't be any more attacks from the wild beasts." Just as Zhao San finished his confident words, a beast's roar suddenly came from the forest beside the official road. The beast's roar was hoarse like the cry of a resentful infant. When it entered everyone's ears, their faces immediately turned pale. "Barbarian? Wild beast? We are doomed. We are doomed." Startled by the beast's roar, the horses of the carriages trembled and stopped running. They crouched on the ground and shivered. In the next moment, a strange beast that was 1,000 feet long suddenly flew out from the forest. It was completely black and had a pair of wings. Its eyes were staring at the carriages and saliva flowed out of its mouth, emitting a rancid smell. Don't. The wild beast crawled towards the carriages step by step. Its heavy footsteps caused the earth and rocks on the official road to collapse. The road to Bienliang City was blocked by the wild beast. The horses that were pulling the carriages were unable to move forward due to fear. One by one, the panicked servants and guards jumped off the carriage and fled in all directions, abandoning their masters. Only a dozen guards were unwilling to abandon their masters even though they were fearful of the wild beast. Even though Zhao Boyong was a great scholar, he couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression at this moment. His wife was just an ordinary woman. At this moment, her face had already turned pale from fright. The baby was also awakened by the beast's roar and started crying. Zhao Fifth, Zhao Seventh, the two of you are responsible for protecting Master, Madam, and young Miss. Leave now. The rest of you, follow me to block the wild beast. Zhao Sen bellowed. He drew his saber and leaped off the carriage. Leading a group of people, he charged towards the wild beast in an attempt to buy time for his master's family to escape. Under the support of 2 guards, Zhao Boyong and his family got off the carriage. Just as they were about to escape, their expressions suddenly changed. On the official road behind them, there were also several wild beasts scuttling out. Most of the servants who abandoned their masters to escape had already died in the mouths of the wild beasts. Their limbs were scattered all over the ground. As for Zhao San and the other guards who were fighting with the wild beast, 3 of them were eaten by the wild beast in just a single move. My life is over. Zhao Boyong sighed with his eyes closed. His expression was bitter. As a great scholar, he understood the relationship between the heavens and earth and was indifferent to life and death. However, his wife and daughter were here as well. He couldn't bear to watch his wife and daughter die in the mouths of the wild beasts. Zhao San and the other guards' faces were pale as well. With a pincer attack from both the front and the back, it was impossible for mortals like them to escape death. This old man's life is going to end here today. Just when everyone was in despair, an indifferent voice of a young man suddenly sounded. Stand down. It was a very calm tone without any arrogance, but in the ears of the wild beasts, it sounded like an order that couldn't be disobeyed. The wild beasts who were busy eating the humans suddenly revealed a look of terror. They looked at the person who spoke and trembled. On the official road far away, a white-robed young man with an otherworldly temperament was walking slowly. Beside him was a delicate woman and a silver-haired little girl with red lips and white teeth. The person who spoke was the white-robed young man. As the white-robed young man walked step by step, the wild beasts in the area felt a pressure as heavy as a mountain. They wailed a few times and started to flee. The white-robed young man looked at the escaping wild beasts and didn't attack them. He muttered to himself, "A harmonious spirit wild beast. With my current blood tribulation aura, I only need to intimidate them to scare them away." This white-robed young man was naturally Ning Fan. With the powerful demon spirit force, Ning Fan was able to shield himself from all senses and walked in the ancient savage domain like a mortal. His goal was to follow the official road to the nearby barbarian city and cultivate there. He didn't fly because he wanted to comprehend the way mortals traveled. The wild beasts are gone. They didn't eat us. What happened? Where did this man come from? He could scare the wild beasts away with just a word. Only 11 people managed to keep their lives. They were Zhao Boyang's family of 3 and 8 loyal bodyguards. The rest were all dead. Everyone was glad that they survived the disaster, but they were more puzzled. Wild beasts were ferocious and fearless. They had low intelligence, but why would they listen to the white-robed young man's order? This was something they couldn't understand. Zhao Boyong was knowledgeable. He had read a lot of books, so he knew a lot. Legend has it that there was a great scholar in ancient times who cultivated righteousness and could scare off evil beasts with just a word. Could this white-robed young man be one of those peerless scholars? I'm Zhao Boyong from Tsufu. Thank you for saving my life. May I know your name? Ning Fan. Is young Master Ning heading to Bianliang? Yes. I don't know how to repay young Master for saving my life. I sincerely hope that young Master can travel with us. We can use a carriage to express our gratitude. Zhao Boyang made this request. Firstly, he wanted to thank Ning Fan for saving his life. Considering that Ning Fan's journey was tough, he wanted to send him off with a carriage. Secondly, he wanted to borrow Ning Fan's righteousness to deter the wild beasts and ensure their safety. Ning Fan naturally knew what Zhao Boyang was thinking, but he didn't point it out. He smiled and nodded. Zhao Boyang invited him into the most luxurious carriage. Almost all the servants in the caravan were dead or injured. The guards of the Zhao family packed up their luggage, leaving only 4 carriages behind, and continued their journey to Bianliang. The 8 guards knew that it was Ning Fan who scared the wild beasts away. Although they didn't know why, they were very grateful and respectful towards Ning Fan. Immortal Loli had eaten too many lightning fragments. She was sleeping soundly in the carriage while leaning on Lu Yan. Lu Yan's beautiful eyes were fixed on Ning Fan. Her eyes were sparkling from time to time. This was her first time seeing Ning Fan's face and hearing his name. So Senior is the famous Rain Immortal Monarch of the Eastern Heaven. Ning Fan sat in the carriage and occasionally chatted with Zhao Boyang. Most of the time, he hid his hands in his sleeves and secretly condensed fire elemental crystals. The guards who fought against the wild beasts risked their lives and erupted with extremely strong battle intent. Ning Fan collected that battle intent and condensed it bit by bit into a high-grade fire elemental crystal. The power of the battle intent it contained was tens of times stronger than a supreme-grade battle crystal. If Ning Fan hadn't mastered the 3rd transformation of his battle arts, he wouldn't be able to condense the battle intent of mortals into crystals. As the number of his natal battle flames increased, the current him was able to achieve this. In the past few days, I've visited all the places with strong battle intent in the desolate wilderness, but none of them could condense a high-grade fire elemental crystal. The battle intent in this place isn't strong, but the battle intent of mortals who fought to the death is much stronger than some ancient battlefields. It actually helped me condense a high-grade fire elemental crystal. If I use this method to gather the battle intent of mortals and condense them into high-grade fire elemental crystals, I believe the speed of mastering the 4th transformation will be very fast. The battle intent he gathered from the guards had already been used up. After that, he wouldn't be able to condense a high-grade fire elemental crystal with the sparse battle intent in this place. With a thought, Ning Fan kept the high-grade fire elemental crystal into his storage pouch. He could not help but look forward to his trip to Bianliang City. Bianliang was one of the few prosperous barbarian cities in the 8th district. Even though this city was protected by the barbaric statue, it was often attacked by wild beasts. People often died in the mouths of wild beasts. Mortals were afraid of wild beasts, and that fear went deep into their bones. The more fearful they were, the stronger their battle intent would be when they fought the wild beasts to the death. If he gathered the battle intent of those mortals who were fearless of death and condensed them into high-grade fire elemental crystals, he would be able to master the 4th transformation of his battle arts even faster. The 4th transformation isn't far away. Perhaps, I can also transform into a mortal in this barbarian city. Ning Fan pondered. Suddenly, a cry interrupted Ning Fan's thoughts. It was Zhao Boyang's half-year-old daughter who was crying. The reason for her crying was because the barbaric poison was acting up. There was a bruise on one side of the child's face. That was the place where the barbaric poison was poisoned. I'm sorry to disturb you. When my daughter was born, there were wild beasts attacking Xiufu City. Although the wild beasts didn't invade the city, they left behind quite a lot of barbaric poison. My daughter unfortunately inhaled some of it. Every day, my daughter would be corroded by the barbaric poison for a few hours. That's why she would cry. Zhao Boyang heaved a long sigh. His eyes were filled with sorrow and helplessness when he looked at his daughter. Even if an adult was poisoned by the barbaric poison, only a few of them could endure the pain of it. His daughter had to bear the pain brought by the barbaric poison the moment she was born. As a father, he was powerless. There were only a few people who knew how to treat the barbaric poison. At this moment, he was neither a great scholar nor the old master of the Zhao clan. He was just a powerless father. Madame Zhao's tears flowed down her cheeks when she saw her daughter suffering. She wished that she could take her daughter's place to suffer. Ning Fan's gaze gradually became distant. Amidst his panic, he thought of his parents, especially his mother who had sacrificed her demon blood for him. "Let me hug her." Ning Fan smiled faintly. Under the puzzled gaze of Zhao Boyang and his wife, he took the little girl and held her in his arms. The power of the calamity blood in his body moved, and the barbaric poison in the little girl's body was immediately eliminated. Once the pain was gone, the little girl naturally stopped crying. She couldn't speak yet. She just curled up in Ning Fan's arms, sucking on her fingers and staring at Ning Fan with her black eyes without blinking. The bruises on her chubby face were no longer there. The barbaric poison is gone. Zhao Boyang sucked in a breath of cold air and stared at his daughter's face in disbelief. Unbelievable, unbelievable. Ning Fan just hugged the little girl and the barbaric poison in her body was gone. Could this be the righteous qi that was recorded in the ancient records? The barbaric poison and evil spirits were all gone? Young Master Ning, I'm very grateful for your help. Zhao Boyang cupped his fists and said solemnly, "It's just a small matter. I just hope that old Master Zhao won't tell everyone about my ability when we reach Bianliang." Ning Fan said with a smile. "I won't. I'll definitely keep my mouth shut about this. This little girl is very cute. What's her name?" "Zhao De. This name was given by my wife." Zhao Boyang's expression was slightly awkward. He was a dignified Confucian scholar, yet his daughter's name was given so casually. He was afraid that Ning Fan, who was also a Confucian scholar, would tease him and look down on him. "Oh, Zhao De. This name seems to be fated with me." Ning Fan smiled faintly and returned the little girl to Madame Zhao's arms. He no longer paid attention to her. The journey of 20 li was completed in 2 hours. Ning Fan brought the two ladies down from the carriage. After bidding farewell to Zhao Boyang, they entered Bianliang city alone. When the guards of the city saw Ning Fan and his group coming from the official road outside the city, they were stunned. Ning Fan and his group did not wear the barbarian god jade pendant on their necks. They just casually walked into the city from outside. Are they people who are fleeing from the disaster? They didn't manage to get the barbarian god jade pendant in time? Without the barbarian god jade pendant, they actually didn't get eaten by the wild beasts outside the city. They are really lucky. Some of the guards discussed softly. Bianliang city was extremely prosperous. After entering the city, both sides of the long street were filled with shops and restaurants. Along the way, they arrived at the Bian River. Both sides of the river were filled with plum trees. There were many empty mansions for sale. Zhao Boyang gave him some money and Ning Fan did not reject it. Ning Fan bought a mansion as his temporary residence. Lu Yen stayed at home to nourish the star plate while the immortal Loli was sleeping soundly in her room. Ning Fan walked out of the courtyard and walked to the side of the Bian River. He looked at the plum trees on both sides of the river and smiled faintly. It was still summer in Bianliang city. Naturally, there were no plum blossoms on the plum trees. There was only a single green leaf. However, if winter comes, there would be countless plum blossoms blooming on both sides of the river. Cultivating the war god art and mortal transcending truth will take up a lot of time. I think I will still be staying in this city for a long time. These plum blossoms are very good. It reminds me of 7 Apricot City and gives me a sense of home. Ning Fan looked at the plum trees on both sides of the river with a smile that reached the bottom of his eyes. Inadvertently, a trace of true illusion force flashed across Ning Fan's body. On the Bian River, a gaily painted boat passed by. A white-haired old man was standing at the bow of the boat. He was holding a gourd in his hand and drinking wine in big gulps. When he saw Ning Fan looking at the plum blossoms and smiling, the old man was stunned at first and then burst into laughter. "Awesome! Awesome!" Smiling before seeing the plum blossoms, the Tao is already in your heart. You are the same as me. Both of you are people who really know how to appreciate plum blossoms. In the eyes of ordinary people, the most beautiful part of plum blossoms is when it blossoms, lofty and unyielding. However, they have forgotten that without the accumulation of energy in spring, summer, and autumn, how can the plum blossoms have the power to bloom in a single season? The accumulation of energy in 3 seasons is only for the bloom in a single season. This is the destiny of us cultivators. Accumulating energy is the key to blossom. Upon hearing this, Ningfan's eyes suddenly turned cold and looked at the old man on the gaily painted boat. If he was not mistaken, that old man was actually a peak-shedding void realm cultivator. I come from the northern heaven. My Tao title is Kei Shensi. May I know your name? Are you willing to come to this gaily painted boat and discuss the Tao with me? With Kei Shensi's eyesight, he could naturally tell that Ningfan was a cultivator. Judging from the trace of illusory true force that Ningfan had inadvertently released, Ningfan should still be on the path of comprehending the truth. Thinking of this, Kei Shensi didn't mind telling Ningfan his Tao title to form a good relationship with him and give him some pointers. Ningfan's eyes changed again. Kei Shensi, this name sounds familiar. That's right, he's the old ancestor of Sinister Sparrow's sect of Yu country. He's the almighty cultivator who left behind the comprehension of rain in the dark sparrow's grave. He had never thought that he would meet Kei Shensi in such a place. However, it seemed like Kei Shensi didn't know his identity. Ningfan thought for a while and understood the reason. Although his identity was widely known in the eastern heaven, it might not necessarily be known in the northern heaven. It wasn't strange that Kei Shensi didn't know him. If it wasn't for the comprehension of rain left by Kei Shensi in the dark sparrow's grave, Ningfan might not be who he was today. Towards Kei Shensi, Ningfan felt 30% gratitude, 20% curiosity, and 50% vigilance. In any case, it was necessary to be vigilant when encountering a strange cultivator who was also a powerful old monster. Junior Ningfan greets Senior Kei Shensi. I'm willing to go on a boat and discuss the Tao with Senior. Ningfan's figure flashed and directly appeared on the gaily painted boat. The few men who were rowing the boat rubbed their eyes in disbelief. After a while, they exclaimed, This junior has such a powerful movement technique. That's right. In the eyes of mortals, the movement technique that Ningfan used to fly on the gaily painted boat was a movement technique. Ningfan? That's a good name. Everything is Tao and Ning is obsession. There's a deep seed of obsession in Little Friend's Tao sense. I think Little Friend's Tao is the Tao of obsession. Am I mistaken? Kei Shensi said with a faint smile. His eyes flashed with green light. He wasn't an ancient immortal venerable. His cultivation base might not be high in the northern heaven, but the green light in his eyes was clearly the green light of the unity of heaven and man. He could see through the essence of Ningfan's Tao with just a glance. Ningfan's expression remained unchanged, but his heart was secretly shocked. He nodded and didn't say anything, acknowledging Kei Shensi's words. The Tao of obsession. This is my first time seeing a cultivator who cultivates this Tao. I'm afraid that it will be a mental torture. If Little Friend can't get rid of the obsession in your heart, you won't be able to cross the true bridge even if you spend your entire life. If you get rid of the obsession, your Tao will collapse and your heart will be destroyed. Then, you won't be able to cross the true bridge in the end. The difficulty of Little Friend crossing the true bridge isn't small. As for void abandonment and thought fragmentation realm, Kei Shensi sighed. This old man will give Little Friend a piece of advice. Don't cross the true bridge in your life. Otherwise, your life will be in danger. Remember. Chapter 867. This life is unredeemable. What if I insist on it? Ningfan's eyes were calm and unwavering. He was very grateful for Kei Shensi's advice, but Kei Shensi's words couldn't affect his Tao heart. Kei Shensi was startled for a moment, then burst into laughter and tossed the gourd to Ningfan. You're indeed a Tao persistence cultivator. Since you insist on truth crossing, I naturally won't stop you. Meeting each other is fate. This wine is brewed from the Tao's seeking fruit. I'll give it to you. Ningfan received the gourd and scanned the spiritual wine with his spirit sense. His expression changed immediately. The Tao-seeking fruit was a spiritual fruit that could increase one's probability of truth crossing. It was said that it only grew in the savage ancient domain. The value of a Tao-seeking fruit was not lower than the truth-crossing Tao fruit. This wine contained at least the energy of dozens of Tao-seeking fruits. Thank you for the wine, Senior. It's impolite not to reciprocate. Please accept this. Ning Fan kept the wine gourd and took out a Tao fruit, giving it to Kei Shensi. Kei Shensi's eyes were calm at first, but his expression changed when he saw the Tao fruit. It's the void-shedding Tao fruit. Kei Shensi had never expected that a true fate immortal would have a void-shedding Tao fruit. After giving Ning Fan a deep look, Kei Shensi realized that he had underestimated Ning Fan from the beginning. The value of a void-shedding Tao fruit was much higher than those spiritual wines. Ning Fan returned the Tao fruit because he didn't want to accept someone's kindness for free. This was Ning Fan's insistence. This kid has a good temperament. The fact that he dared to give the Tao fruit to me without being afraid of my void-shedding Tao fruit showed that he had full confidence in himself, and his cultivation base was at the peak of void-shedding Tao fruit. It seems like this kid has hidden his strength well. When the boatmen saw Ning Fan take out a strange fruit like a magic trick, they were so shocked that they couldn't close their mouths. They had no idea where Ning Fan got this fruit from. Senior doesn't seem to be far from the thought fragmentation realm. I hope this Tao fruit can provide some help for Senior's breakthrough. Ning Fan smiled meaningfully. Kei Shensi's heart was slightly shaken. He looked at Ning Fan in disbelief, as if he was looking at a monster. He didn't tell anyone that he was about to break through the thought fragmentation realm. Even the old monster breaking Tao old monster couldn't see through his cultivation base. However, Ning Fan did. The power of the unity of heaven and man in his body suddenly trembled a little, as if it had sensed something from Ning Fan. Kei Shensi immediately opened his mouth wide. He finally understood why Ning Fan's eyesight was so sharp. I see. It turns out that my little friend is also. I'm ashamed. The younger generation will surpass us in time, truly surpass us in time. After Kei Shensi sighed, his expression suddenly turned solemn as he asked, "Are you a member of the secret race?" From Kei Shensi's point of view, only the 10 great secret clans had a small possibility of cultivating a Gui Xian who had attained the unity of heaven and man. No. That's good. There's a great opportunity in the hands of the barbarian demon clan. Little friend, are you interested in joining me to seize this opportunity? Kei Shensi looked at Ning Fan with sincerity, as if he was looking at a peer. Opportunity? What kind of opportunity? Ning Fan's eyelids twitched slightly. A tree that hasn't blossomed yet, it will surely blossom in a few decades. After the flower blooms, it will turn into ashes. That flower is a great opportunity. Those who aren't cultivators who have attained the unity of heaven and man can't consume this flower, or they will die for sure. Cultivators who have already opened the first gate of the heavenly being realm will have a slight chance of opening the second gate if they consume this flower. Kei Shensi said with fiery eyes. Is that so? Ning Fan's heart was slightly shocked, but he didn't show any of it on his face. It was Ning Fan's first time hearing about a flower that could increase the chance of opening the second gate of the heavenly being realm. If it was really as mysterious as what Kei Shensi said, it would be a great opportunity. But since the flower is in the hands of the barbarian demon clan, it will be very dangerous to seize it. I've only just met Kei Shensi, but he invited me to seize this opportunity. Naturally, he isn't interested in my cultivation base, but my unity of heaven and man. In other words, it's impossible for a cultivator who has attained the unity of heaven and man to seize the flower of this tree. I'm not familiar with Kei Shensi. It's possible that he has malicious intentions towards me. This opportunity can increase the chance of opening the second gate of the heavenly being realm, but it's just a slight chance. It's not necessary. Therefore, the most important thing now is to cultivate the war god art. If there's time, I can transform into a mortal and enter the true realm. It's not impossible to seize that flower. Ning Fan's thoughts raced. After a moment, he made up his mind and clasped his fists at Kei Shensi apologetically. Junior still needs to comprehend the true realm. I'm afraid I won't have the time to seize this opportunity. After hearing that Ning Fan had rejected his good intention, Kei Shensi was startled at first, then shook his head with a bitter smile. Forget it. This old man will leave Bianliang City today to make some preparations for obtaining the flower. When the flower blooms, this old man will return to this city. If little friend changes your mind at that time, you can follow this old man to obtain the flower. If this old man is alone, I'm afraid the chance of obtaining the flower will be very low. I hope little friend can change your mind, AI. Kei Shensi let out a sigh and no longer mentioned this matter. He took out some spiritual wine and drank with Ning Fan on the gaily painted boat. Their friendship was shallow, so they naturally couldn't have a deep conversation, but it was still possible to discuss the Tao with each other while drinking. Both of them were cultivators who had opened the first gate of the heavenly being realm. Their knowledge and experience were naturally incomparable to ordinary cultivators. As the sky darkened, Kei Shensi finally had the intention to leave. He bid farewell to Ning Fan and left Bianliang City. Ning Fan returned to his home and sat cross-legged for a long time before his Tao heart completely calmed down. It wasn't that Ning Fan wasn't tempted by the opportunity that Kei Shensi mentioned, but he didn't care too much about it. After putting everything behind him, Ning Fan began to cultivate the war god art wholeheartedly. There was a private school that was just a wall away from Ning Fan's house. In the evening, there were naturally many children who had left school, making the street bustling with activity. There were also peddlers shouting their wares as they walked past the courtyard wall of Ning Fan's house. There were also all kinds of noises from the market. Not only did it not disturb his cultivation, it made his heart even more peaceful. Suddenly, Ning Fan understood why some powerful cultivators liked to choose the noisy marketplace to comprehend the Tao. Small seclusion in the wilderness, big seclusion in the city. The noise of the market could calm one's Tao heart better. The chirping of cicadas in the forest was quieter than the chirping of birds in the mountain. Ning Fan's Tao heart was like a forest and a mountain, reaching an unprecedented level of concentration. His body, mouth and intent were perfectly united. At this moment, Ning Fan felt that he was getting closer to the myriad of Tao in the heavens. The feeling of being in harmony with heaven and earth had also deepened. Suddenly, Ning Fan's eyes had a hint of enlightenment. Perhaps, if he could transform into a mortal for thousands of years, he could still find the opportunity to open the second gate of the celestial being realm even if there wasn't any opportunity. This was Ning Fan's first day in Bianliang City. On the second day, the private school next door suddenly became lively. Countless people of Bianliang City flocked to this place to watch the bustling scene. The reason was simple. A new teacher had come to the private school today. He was a great scholar in Sufu City, Zhao Boyang. Although Bianliang City was prosperous, there weren't any great scholars in the city. When Zhao Boyang came to teach in this private school, many of the wealthy clans in Bianliang City rushed to send their disciples to this private school. How could a small private school accommodate so many students? A few wealthy clans discussed and decided to expand the private school into an academy. Once the academy was opened, Zhao Boyang wouldn't be the only teacher. They could invite some famous scholars to teach them. With the financial resources of these wealthy clans, it only took them a month to build an academy that was only a wall away from the Ning family. The name of the academy was Academy in the Clouds. It was meant to encourage the students to have lofty ambitions. Although the academy was built, the teachers hadn't been found yet. Therefore, the school hadn't started yet. It had been a month since Ning Fan arrived in Bianliang City. Occasionally, he would bring Lu Yen and Immortal Loli to the Bian River for an outing. Most of the time, he would stay at home in seclusion to condense his crystal. Lu Yan's appearance was considered top-notch in the cultivation world. Naturally, she was peerless in the mortal world. In just a month, the news had spread in Bianliang City that Ning Ning had given birth to a beautiful wife whose beauty outshone the moon and flowers. There was also a rumor that the silver-haired little Loli was Ning Ning's daughter. She had an extraordinary appearance since she was young. When she grew up, she would definitely be a peerless beauty. Countless playboys came looking for fish. Unfortunately, they were all beaten up by Immortal Loli and fled in a hurry. Immortal Loli was bored, extremely bored. Even though she had thunder fragments to eat and a good night's sleep, she still felt bored. Beating people up became immortal Loli's pastime. Every time she saw a playboy showing an evil smile at Lu Yen, she would rush forward and beat him up violently. Every time she saw a lecherous old man looking at her with a perverted and wretched smile, she would rush forward and beat him up violently. The playboy gathered dozens of guards and wanted to get back at her. Don't be afraid, beat him up. The son of the city lord of Bianliang City was beaten up and 300 soldiers came to encircle her. Don't be afraid, beat him up. Immortal Loli's violent reputation quickly spread across the entire Bianliang City. No one dared to provoke her. Everyone in the city knew that Ning Xing had a daughter named Ning Xianxian who was 7 years old. She had been taught a divine technique by an expert. 300 soldiers were no match for Ning Xianxian alone. Ning Fan was powerless to stop immortal Loli's high-profile and violent behavior. He could only let her do as she pleased. His only request was to stop her from using her abilities to kill people in Bianliang City. Compared to the violent immortal Loli, Lu Yen was much more gentle and quiet. During the day, she really seemed to have become Ning Fan's wife. She washed and cooked like a mortal woman. At night, she would wholeheartedly nurture the weapon spirit. She realized that nurturing the weapon spirit in the mortal world was much faster than when she was in seclusion. As for turning into a mortal with Ning Fan, she did not seem to reject it. Instead, she somewhat enjoyed this peaceful life. However, this was a barbarian city. It was a world where savage beasts rampaged. The people were struggling to survive under the slaughter of the savage beasts. Within a month, the savage beasts had actually attacked the city 7 times. Every time there were soldiers fighting the savage beasts with their mortal bodies, Ning Fan would seize the opportunity to collect condensed battle intent crystals. On the city walls of Bianliang City, there were many ancient barbarian statues that looked like humans and beasts. They had abilities that could deter the savage beasts. Every time the savage beasts attacked the city, the barbarian statues would display their power by releasing black and red light to counterattack the savage beasts. With the number of barbarian statues in Bianliang City, even if the savage beasts of the second step besieged the city, it was difficult to guarantee that they would not die. However, before Ning Fan came to Bianliang City, every time the savage beasts attacked the city, there would be a certain number of casualties. Sometimes only one person would die. Sometimes a few people would die. Sometimes a part of the city wall would collapse and more than 10 people would die. However, after Ning Fan arrived, he would occasionally help the barbarian soldiers. Very few barbarian soldiers would die in the mouths of the savage beasts. Naturally, Ning Fan was disdainful to save some barbarians who were afraid of the savage beasts. The reason why he helped them was not because he felt pity for them. Within a month, Ning Fan had condensed a total of 7 pieces of high-grade fierce elemental crystals. After devouring them, the number of flames of war had increased to 1,300. An increase of 100 flames of war in a month. This kind of cultivation speed was extremely shocking. While walking in Bianliang City, Ning Fan looked at the barbarian statues that could be seen everywhere and fell into deep thought. Every barbarian city had a barbarian god temple. The barbarian monks in the temples knew how to craft the barbarian god jade pendant and the barbarian statues to protect the barbarians. Barbarian monks had a high status among the barbarians. However, their numbers were extremely few. For the first time in a month, Ning Fan came to the barbarian temple in Bianliang City. He saw countless barbarians who were worshipping him devoutly and a barbarian monk who was as thin as a match. That barbarian monk did not have any cultivation base. He was also a mortal. However, he could use the power of faith from the people to craft the barbarian god jade pendant and the barbarian statue. That barbarian monk was the only monk in the barbarian temple. His Dharma name was Manchi. When Ning Fan arrived, he was holding a carving knife in the main hall of the temple. His eyes were filled with lifeless chi while he was carving a barbarian statue. It was just a piece of rotten wood. However, under his carving, it gradually gained some spirituality. As expected, the reason why the barbarian statues in the city can unleash their power is because of the power of the incense. Ning Fan muttered to himself. Man Chi turned his head in displeasure and glared at Ning Fan. He was the only barbarian monk in Bianliang City. His status was extremely high. Even the city lord of Bianliang City would have to show some respect to him. When he was carving the barbarian statue, he disliked being disturbed by others and no one had ever dared to disturb him. However, Ning Fan had barged into his main hall and disturbed him while he was carving the statue. This isn't a place where you should be. Back off. Man Chi's eyes turned sharp. He actually released a trace of aura force towards Ning Fan. That was the aura force he condensed from the incense of the barbarians. It was almost as strong as a harmonious spirit realm cultivator. If it was a mortal, they would naturally not be able to withstand his aura force. Unfortunately, his aura force could not affect Ning Fan at all. Incense force, huh? Ning Fan flicked his finger and Man Chi's aura force immediately collapsed. His gaze moved away from Man Chi and landed on a golden statue that was worshipped in the main hall. Man Chi stared at Ning Fan in disbelief. He could not figure out why his aura force was ineffective against Ning Fan. Could it be that Ning Fan is also a barbarian monk and his usage of the power of faith is even more powerful than mine? Benefactor, could it be? Before Man Chi could finish his words, he was interrupted by Ning Fan. Silence. As soon as Ning Fan's voice fell, a wave of aura force as strong as heaven and earth fell on Man Chi's body. Man Chi could not utter a single word while being suppressed by that aura force. His expression when he looked at Ning Fan was filled with deep fear. Benefactor, you are indeed a barbarian monk. Moreover, you are a barbarian monk that is thousands of times stronger than me. Ning Fan did not pay attention to Man Chi. He quietly stared at the golden barbarian statue in the main hall. This golden statue was the ancestor of the barbarians. The statue of the barbarian ancestor was very similar to the inverse nascent soul. It had 2 heads and each of its hands was holding a bolt of lightning, as if it was going to send a tribulation punishment to people. Ning Fan could sense a trace of chi similar to the inverse nascent soul from the statue of the barbarian ancestor. It was very faint and was condensed from the power of incense. Barbarians, savage beasts, and tribulation intent. What is the relationship between them? There are too many secrets in this world. With my current cultivation base, I am far from being qualified to see through them. Ning Fan walked out of the temple and walked along the Bian River back to his home. Outside his house, he unexpectedly met Zhao Boyang and his group who were leaving the academy. It was Zhao Boyang's first time coming to the academy after it was built. Zhao Boyang had never thought that Ning Fan would live in a place that was just a wall away from the academy. After being surprised for a while, he was overjoyed and invited Ning Fan to the academy to be a teacher. Currently, the academy was recruiting famous teachers. In Zhao Boyang's mind, Ning Fan was a great Confucian scholar of the current era. He was naturally qualified to teach in the academy. Zhao Boyang politely declined Zhao Boyang's invitation. Seeing that Ning Fan did not have the intention to teach and educate people, Zhao Boyang did not force him anymore and left with a sigh. However, from then on, Zhao Boyang would often come to the academy next door to look for Ning Fan to discuss Confucianism in his spare time. When the first gust of autumn wind blew into Bianliang City, it had already been 3 months since Ning Fan arrived in Bianliang City. Time passed by slowly. In the first winter, the winter plum blossoms on both sides of the Bian River did not bloom. In the second winter, the plum blossoms still did not bloom. In the third winter, it suddenly snowed heavily in Bianliang City. Both sides of the Bian River were covered with white snow and the plum blossoms were in full bloom. The number of natal war flames in Ning Fan's body had already reached 4,500. As for the yin-yang battle technique, it had already reached 74%. The further he progressed, the more difficult it became to cultivate. Fortunately, Ning Fan was not in a hurry. He understood that haste makes waste in cultivation. The immortal Loli's lightning physique evolved bit by bit, and the chill of the lightning power in her body became more and more obvious. She seemed to be afraid of the cold, and was unwilling to go out when it snowed. 3 years had passed, but the immortal Loli didn't grow at all. Many people secretly guessed that the immortal Loli had eaten the youth-halting immortal fruit outside the barbarian city by mistake, which allowed her to retain her youth. Lu Yen stayed at home and took care of the immortal Loli, who was sleeping soundly. After being together for so many years, her relationship with this violent Loli had deepened. In addition to harmonizing the spirit with the astrolabe, she would also weave some cloth and embroider some patterns like a mortal woman in her spare time. She would then exchange them for money to pass the time. Since Ning Fan wanted to transform into a mortal, she would naturally do her best to create a mortal atmosphere for him. Amidst the wind and snow, the recitation of a barbarian child could be heard coming from the academy in the clouds. Barbarians are the ancestors of nature, the great sex of all realms. The barbarian is born in the dust and dies in the tribulation. Everything in the world cannot be clung to, clinging to it will lead to the loss of the barbarian. Ning Fan walked out of his house, leaving footprints on the snowy ground. However, they were soon covered by the wind and snow. Ning Fan's ears were echoing with the sound of the students reciting, but he remained silent. The children were reciting the barbarian ancestor scripture, an academic classic left behind by the ancestors of the barbarians. The barbarian ancestor scripture kept telling barbarians to be indifferent to life and death, to give up their obsession, to follow their destiny and not to resist. Ning Fan had heard the recitation too many times and he was already tired of it. Every sentence of the barbarian ancestor scripture went against his Tao. Everything in the world should not be stubborn, should not be stubborn. The ancestral vow was sealed by Ning Fan and temporarily kept in his storage pouch. As for the 7 seven-colored arrow spirits, they were sealed inside his body. Each of the arrow spirits contained a terrifying amount of true illusion power. During these 3 years, Ning Fan had already refined half of the first arrow spirit. The true illusion power in his body skyrocketed and was absorbed by Ning Fan into his Tao heart. His cultivation base was getting closer and closer to the early crossing truth realm. Currently, he could already vaguely see the true bridge hidden in the mist of his Tao heart. However, he still couldn't see through it completely. Moreover, he gradually discovered that there was more than one true bridge hidden in the mist. There were many more. Crossing truth is still far away. Ning Fan held the wine gourd given to him by Kei Shensi and walked on the snow towards the Bian River. The red plum blossoms on the shore had already bloomed. Looking at the red plum blossoms in the snow, Ning Fan thought of Yu Country and 7 Apricot City. Kei Shensi advised him to give up on Duzhen, but he wouldn't. The barbarian ancestor scripture advised people to let go of their obsession and he wouldn't either. It was because he still had a home. His home was in 7 Apricot City, Yu Country and the Rain World. He still had his family. He still had things that he must protect. There were too many things that he had to do and he couldn't let go of his obsession. He needed strength to fulfill his promise to Sha Di. He needed strength to find the immortal emperor who had schemed against him and take revenge. He needed strength to stand beside Luo Yu one day. He also needed strength to create a great world where there was no conflict. He did not know how much strength he needed to achieve that. Looking at the red plum blossoms, Ning Fan lifted the gourd and drank a mouthful of spiritual wine, letting the medicinal power of the Tao-seeking fruit spread throughout his body. After an unknown period of time, a burst of laughter came from behind him. "Uncle, can you pluck a few plum blossoms for me? I want to weave a flower crown for the little snow cow. But I'm too short. I can't reach it." A 2 to 3 years old baby wearing a small red cotton jacket with her hair combed into a bun was holding the corner of Ning Fan's clothes pitifully. Her face was red from the cold. In order to show Ning Fan that she couldn't reach the plum blossoms, she tiptoed and hopped. Sure enough, she couldn't reach it. It was far from her reach. "Oh, it's that little girl." Ning Fan recognized the little girl in front of him at first glance based on her chi. She was Zhao Boyang's daughter, Zhao Yi. She was already 3 years old. Originally, she followed her father to the academy to play. When the maidservants weren't paying attention, she sneaked out and made a snowman that looked like a dog or a cow on the snowy ground beside the river. "Uncle, help me pluck some plum blossoms. I will marry you when I grow up. I promise you." If you don't believe me, let's pinky swear. Said confidently. Chapter 868. Marry me? Heh, do you know what it means to get married? Ning Fan was startled and laughed involuntarily. In his life, he had never been confessed to by a child who was less than 3 years old. He only found it interesting. I know, getting married is to be like Sister Sia, wearing a beautiful wedding coat, eating a lot of wedding cakes, sitting on a wedding boat and lighting up the wedding lanterns. Or wants to get married even in her dreams. Zhao? Answered with a childish voice, her face full of envy. How could she understand the meaning of getting married? To her, getting married meant having delicious food and fun. Sister Sia? Who's that? Ning Fan squatted down and stroked Dietler's little head with a gentle expression. Sister Sia is the servant that mother appointed for me. She treats me very well, but it's strange that after she got married, she no longer takes care of me. Uncle, quick, help me pick the plum blossoms. The child pouted as if he didn't like being patted on the head as it wouldn't grow taller. All right, I'll help Dai. How many plum blossoms does Dai want? A lot, a lot. How many? I don't know. Anyway, I want a lot. Ning Fan laughed and shook his head. He only picked 2 plum blossoms and put one on the head of the little snow cow and the other on Dai's head. It's not enough. Dai wants more plum blossoms. Dai wants to weave a big flower crown. The child pouted and said, some things, the more the better. The beauty of plum blossoms lies in its solitude and pride. Wearing only one is the most beautiful. It's not a flower that can be weaved into a crown. I don't understand. Uncle, I don't understand a single word you said. The child looked at Ning Fan in confusion, not understanding why he didn't pick more plum blossoms for her. However, she didn't mind. Anyway, the little snow cow already had a plum blossom on its head, and she also had one on her head. She was already very happy. She hopped around the little snow cow and hummed a folk song. Little barbaric cow, don't look back, fight for freedom with the heavens. Don't give up until you see the yellow river, but the river is not clear. The river is not clear. Catch the barbarian fish. The barbarian fish can jump 3,000 li fight against the heavens, but get caught by the cat. This was a ballad passed down from mouth to mouth among the barbarians. The meaning of the ballad was that the bull fought against the heavens for freedom, but it was stopped at the Yellow River. The barbarian fish fought against the heavens, but it died in the mouth of the cat. The ballad was advising the barbarians that humans could not fight against the heavens. They had to obey the will of the heavens and could not go against it. This rumor is a little harsh. Ning Fan said with a slight frown. But seeing that the little boy was singing happily, he didn't interrupt him. The little boy made a small snow cow and asked Ning Fan to help him build a big snowman. After making one, he had to make another one. In the end, he made 5 snowmen for the little boy. 4 big ones and 1 small one. This is father, this is mother, this is Sister Sia, this is Dai, and this is uncle. Let's live happily together, be happy and carefree. The little boy made the decision on his own and confirmed the identities of the 5 snowmen. Ning Fan smiled and looked at the innocent expression of the little boy. His heart began to truly integrate into the life in Bianliang. 4 men panted heavily and hurriedly ran towards him. They were the guards of the Zhao mansion. The 4 guards were looking for Zhao. Seeing that she was fine, they were relieved. 3 of them looked at Ning Fan with hostility in their eyes. They were the newly recruited guards of Zhao Boyang after he came to Bianliang. Among the 3 of them, the one with the sturdiest physique stepped in front of Ning Fan and said fiercely, "Who are you? How dare you abduct the eldest daughter of the Zhao clan here? What are your intentions?" The man's tone was very unfriendly. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with a cold light, but he didn't do anything to him. Ning Fan disdained to attack mortals, so he just stared at the man coldly. Just a cold stare without releasing any extra pressure was enough to make the sturdy man's expression change drastically. His whole body was drenched in cold sweat. An expert. This man is definitely an expert. Since when did the Bianliang martial world have such a young expert? The sturdy man was so scared that he almost fell to the ground. At this moment, the leader of the four suddenly reprimanded the man. Wang Li, you are too rude. This young master is old master's friend. He is a distinguished guest of our Zhao clan. How dare you speak to him in such a manner? The one who reprimanded the sturdy man was Zhao San, the guard of the Zhao clan. Ning Fan had once chased away a savage beast and saved his life. Naturally, he knew Ning Fan and he always had some respect for him. Zhao San glared fiercely at the other guards. His hand was already on the blade on his waist. If anyone dares to be rude to Ning Fan again, he would use his blade to kill them. What? This young master is actually old master's friend. The way the other three guards looked at Ning Fan immediately became respectful. How would they dare to offend him? Zhao San asked Ning Fan for the reason. After thanking him for taking care of Zhao Dai, he brought her back to the Cloud Academy. Zhao Dai had not had enough fun yet. She did not want to go back at all. However, she was afraid that her father would beat her if she returned too late. Every few steps she took, she would turn her head and look at Ning Fan reluctantly. After walking far away, she actually turned around and ran back to Ning Fan with a serious expression. Uncle, build a snowman for Dai. When Dai grows up, you must marry me. I want you to build a snowman for me every day. As soon as she finished speaking, she skipped and ran towards the academy while Zhao San and the others were dumbfounded. Marry me? You're just a little kid. Ning Fan smiled faintly and did not mind her words. He turned his head and continued to look at the red plum tree. This was the second time he met Zhao Dai. However, it was definitely not the last time. The snow in Bianliang had yet to stop. The Bian River gradually froze. There were no more pleasure boats sailing in the snow. Zhao Dai followed Zhao San and found Ning Fan's house. It was actually just a wall away from the Cloud Academy. Thus, she would come to play with Ning Fan every few days and ask him to build a snowman for her. Why did she look for Ning Fan? Firstly, it was because Ning Fan was gentle to children and rarely scolded them. Secondly, it was because Ning Fan would occasionally give her some strange sweet pills. They were very sweet and tasty. After eating them, her body would feel warm and not be afraid of the cold snow. Thirdly, it was because Zhao Dai felt that Ning Fan was very free. Every single one of her servants and guards had a lot of work to do. Other than the elderly and children, the common people in Bianliang City had countless jobs to do. Only Ning Fan was very free. He had nothing to do all day. He would go out to walk in the snow, enjoy the plum trees and drink wine. Uncle, why do you have so much free time when everyone has work to do? Mother said that this kind of behavior is called gluttony and laziness. When a girl grows up, she shouldn't marry a lazy man. Dai suddenly doesn't want to marry you. Then why did you come to my house? Ning Fan was speechless. Because the snowman you build looks good. When the snow stops and there are no more snowmen to build, I won't look for you anymore. Dai is going to learn martial arts from brother Xiaowu. When Dai grows up, I want to become a barbarian monk and deliver all living beings from suffering. Good ambition. This is my first time hearing that a little girl wants to become a nun. Ning Fan's forehead was full of black lines. The snow only stopped after the end of the first month. After the snow melted, Zhao didn't bother Ning Fan anymore. Perhaps Ning Fan's meaning to her was just to build a snowman. On the other hand, Zhao's father, Zhao Boyong, came to Ning Fan's house more and more frequently. Every time he came, he would drink wine and discuss the Tao with Ning Fan. Ning Fan's comprehension of the Tao was so profound that even if he didn't cultivate the Confucian scriptures, what he said was enough for Zhao Boyong to use as a classic. In Zhao Boyong's heart, Ning Fan had already become a bosom friend, not just a benefactor. Seeing that Ning Fan seemed to take good care of his daughter, Zhao Boyong once said to Ning Fan half-jokingly after getting drunk, "Brother Ning, you and I aren't ordinary people. If you really like Dai, I'm willing to make the decision and betroth her to you. Dai is still young now. You can set up the engagement first. After she reaches the age of 15, we'll find a matchmaker. What do you think?" I know that you already have a wife and Dai will probably be your concubine. However, with Brother Ning's character, I believe you won't mistreat Dai. Of course, Ning Fan would never agree to such words. He would never be moved by a 3-year-old baby. Zhao Boyang still had the intention to invite Ning Fan to join the Cloud Academy. However, every time he raised the invitation, Ning Fan would still politely reject him. He was becoming more and more immersed in his identity as a mortal, enjoying the rare peace in Bianliang City. The number of flames of war was increasing bit by bit. The cultivation of the Yin-Yang War was progressing bit by bit, and the 7-colored arrow spirit was being refined bit by bit. Every day, Lu Yen would warm the wine for him, and the immortal Loli would come to him to practice. When the snow melted, the immortal Loli would come to Bianliang City again. This was the 3rd year since she came to Bianliang City. She had already defeated everyone in the city. Currently, there was no one in Bianliang City who didn't know her name. It was said that she had devoured some kind of immortal herb which allowed her to maintain the appearance of a little girl forever. It was said that her martial arts had reached perfection. She had defeated 300 soldiers of Bianliang City alone. There were only a few people in Bianliang City who dared to fight with her. Besides, Ning Fan did not allow her to go out of the city to hunt wild beasts. Thus, the bored immortal Loli could only fight with Ning Fan every day. Naturally, she could not use her abilities. Ning Fan also did not use his abilities. Other people might not be able to defeat the immortal Loli, but it was impossible for Ning Fan to lose to her. However, he would not bully her either. He was just a sparring partner. Gradually, the news began to spread in Bianliang City. Ning Sheng was also a peerless expert who lived in seclusion in the Jianghu. Thus, it did not cause too much surprise. In the eyes of the people, it was not strange for Ning Fan, the father of the immortal Loli, to possess peerless martial arts. In the 4th year, it did not snow in Bianliang City and the winter plum blossoms did not bloom. In the 5th year, it did not snow in Bianliang City. In the 6th year, it snowed again in Bianliang City. Ning Fan walked on the snow to admire the plum blossoms again. Once again he met Zhao Dai at the bank of the Bian River. The current Zhao Dai was already 6 years old. Compared to the past, she was much taller. She was also much more sensible and quiet. When she met Ning Fan again, she recognized him at first glance. She still asked Ning Fan to help her build a snowman. However, she was much more shy compared to the past. She no longer talked nonsense like marrying Ning Fan. No matter what, she was the daughter of a great Confucian scholar, Zhao Boyang. Her upbringing was very strict. Thus, she already knew what it meant to get married. It had been 6 years since Ning Fan came to Bianliang City. He had deliberately changed his appearance. He no longer looked young like the immortal Loli. When he first arrived in Bianliang City, he looked like a young man in his 20s. Now, he looked much more mature. "Uncle, can you help me build a snowman?" "Sure. Uncle wants a plum blossom." "All right. I'll help you pluck it." Compared to the past, Zhao Dai was undoubtedly much more polite. However, she also felt a little less intimate. The current Zhao Dai only treated Ning Fan like an uncle in her family. Thus, she naturally knew how to be polite. Gradually, she heard from her mother that Ning Fan was not only her father's good friend but also the one who saved the lives of her entire family from a savage beast in the past. Moreover, he even helped her cure the barbaric poison in her body. Her heart was filled with gratitude towards Ning Fan. In that gratitude, there was no ambiguous romantic feelings. Dai has grown up. Ning Fan stroked Zhao Dai's long black hair which was as smooth as silk. Zhao Dai smiled sweetly. She did not resist. Wasn't it very normal for an elder to touch the head of a junior? "Do you still want to marry me?" Ning Fan asked with a smile. "Uncle, please don't tease me. At that time, I was still young and immature. A child's words carry no harm. Uncle, please don't take it to heart." Zhao's small face blushed as she recalled the embarrassing incident in the past. Dai has really grown up. Brother Boyang's upbringing is indeed strict. A 6-year-old child is already so sensible. Ning Fan withdrew his palm and did not mind it at all. He turned his head and looked at the red plum blossom tree. Then he raised his gourd and gulped down his spiritual wine. He was clearly looking at the red plum blossom tree. However, Zhao, who was a little girl, could tell that he was not looking at the plum blossom. Uncle is looking at the plum blossom, but what I'm thinking about is not the plum blossom. The little girl said with certainty. How do you know that I'm not thinking about the plum blossom? Ning Fan asked with a smile. Every time Mother misses our hometown in Xiufu, she would look at the old clothes and jewelry that she brought with her. Uncle's eyes are very similar to Mother's. Uncle must be thinking about someone, but I don't understand. Uncle has a wife and a daughter and his home is in Bianliang. Who would he be thinking about? The little girl asked curiously. Uncle is thinking about his family. Those family members are in a faraway place. In Uncle's hometown, the wind and snow will never stop and the plum blossom will never wither. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with reminiscence. Uncle's home is in a faraway barbarian city? Can't I go back? Was it massacred by the wild beasts like Xiufu City? No, Uncle's home is still there. I can still go back. Then, when Dai grows up, can I accompany Uncle back home? Dai also wants to see what the barbarian city looks like. Zhao De said with longing. You can't go, Ning Fan sighed softly. Zhao Dai was a barbarian. Barbarians and wild beasts couldn't leave the savage ancient domain. They couldn't even be kept into the heavenly dwelling treasure. Barbarians, the cultivators of the four heavens and the demon race belonged to different worlds. The savage wasteland, the four heavens and the demon spirit land of the upper world belonged to different worlds. Outsiders could come to the savage wasteland but barbarians could never go to other worlds. Why? Is it because we will encounter a lot of wild beasts along the way? Zhao Dai asked disappointedly. It's just that you really can't go. Oh, Zhao lowered her head in disappointment. In order to make her happy, Ning Fan made a few more snowmen. The snowmen he made were not humans but beasts. They weren't wild beasts but creatures that were never recorded in the records of the barbarians. If there were cultivators of the rain world here, they would certainly notice that the snowmen Ning Fan made were the unique wild beasts of the rain world. These wild beasts weren't very strong. Ning Fan had killed some of them. As time passed, Ning Fan's eyes were filled with longing when he looked at these wild beasts. Aren't beasts the natural enemies of barbarians? Why does Uncle look like he misses these beasts? The little girl asked curiously. In Uncle's hometown, beasts aren't necessarily the enemy of humans. Of course, these beasts used to be Uncle's enemies. But there are still wild beasts that won't be enemies with humans in this world? I've decided that after I become a barbarian monk, I will carve a barbarian ancestral carriage and go to Uncle's hometown to have a look. No matter how many wild beasts there are on the road, they won't be able to stop the barbarian carriage. You really can't go there. However, I didn't expect you to still have the ambition to become a barbarian monk. Ning Fan sighed with emotion. It seemed like this Zhao De had made up her mind to become a barbarian monk. This thought probably wouldn't disappear as she grew older. On the second day, Zhao didn't come to Bian River to play in the snow. She had officially entered the Cloud Academy to be enlightened. She didn't have time to pester Ning Fan anymore. The snow this year was slightly sparse. In the 7th year, there was snow in Bianliang. In the 8th year, there was snow in Bianliang. In the 9th year, there was snow in Bianliang. In the 10th year, there was no snow in Bianliang. It had been 10 years since Ning Fan came to Bianliang. The number of his natal war flames had already reached 99. It was already his limit and it was hard for him to increase it any further. The cultivation technique of the god of war art could only produce so many battle flames. It could not produce any more. 9,999 war flames were enough to cultivate the 4th transformation of the war god art. However, Ning Fan still couldn't achieve it. The number of war flames was already enough. However, no one would have expected that there was a second condition in order to cultivate the 4th transformation of the war god art. The cultivator must at least have the cultivation base of the early crossing truth realm in order to break through the bottleneck of the 4th transformation. since no one in the Luo clan had successfully cultivated the fourth transformation of the war god art after the Combat King realm, no one knew that one must have the cultivation base of the crossing Truth realm in order to cultivate the fourth transformation. I can't break through the bottleneck of the fourth transformation without reaching the crossing Truth realm. I didn't expect there to be such a problem. Fortunately, breaking through to the crossing Truth realm is only a matter of time. Ning Fan smiled indifferently. He had already refined half of the 7 seven-colored arrow spirits that he had devoured that day. He could feel that he was getting closer and closer to breaking through to the crossing Truth realm. As long as he completely devours the 7 arrow spirits, he should be able to accumulate enough illusory power to see through all the mist and step onto the true bridge. Once he succeeds in the crossing Truth realm, the fourth transformation would naturally be completed. There was nothing to worry about. Although the cultivation of the war god art had reached the bottleneck, Ning Fan still quietly condensed and devoured the fierce elemental crystals. The progress of the war god art had already reached 82%. He reckoned that he would be able to master it in 20 years like the yin-yang rain. Brother Wu should have returned to the eastern heaven. 10 years have passed. The demon race's bounty on me doesn't seem to be as crazy as before. Ning Fan raised his head and looked at the sky above the city. There was a void fragmentation demon cultivator passing by the city and went far away. That demon cultivator didn't notice Ning Fan's presence. In the past 10 years, there were demon cultivators passing by the city from time to time, but none of them noticed Ning Fan's presence. Gradually, there were fewer and fewer demon cultivators searching for him. The great reputation that Ning Fan made 10 years ago was slowly being forgotten by the cultivators of the desolate mountains. I've spent 10 years to turn my mental state into that of a mortal. Now, it's time for me to seek for the truth. Ning Fan looked at the barren plum tree in front of him. His eyes flickered. He returned home. Outside his house, he met Zhao Dai, by chance. This year, she was 10 years old. Chapter 869. In Bianliang, girls from noble families were usually engaged at the age of 13 or 14 and married at the age of 15. A 10-year-old girl was no longer young. Zhao De was already 10 years old. A 10-year-old girl's body had yet to fully develop, but her beauty had already begun to blossom. Today, Zhao De was wearing a small silk jacket. Her petite body was wrapped in a furry fox fur coat, and her face was bright and clean. There was no snow in Bianliang this year. It was Ning Fan's first time meeting Zhao Dai when there was no snow. 10 years had passed. Ning Fan's appearance now looked like that of a 30-year-old man. His eyes were much deeper than before. However, the moment he saw Zhao Yu, his eyes turned gentle and he said with a faint smile, "Oh, isn't that Dai? Dai greets Uncle Ning. Did Uncle Ning go to Bian River to enjoy the scenery again?" Unfortunately, there was no snow in Bianliang this year, and the plum blossoms did not bloom. Without the company of plum blossoms, Uncle's wine will be a little lonely. Zhao smiled shyly and lowered her head. Her black hair fell like a waterfall, and her voice was soft and sweet. The 10-year-old Zhao Dai was more polite now. She no longer pestered Ning Fan to build a snowman. The 10-year-old Zhao Dai already had the mind of a young girl. Ning Fan's appearance was already handsome, and because of his many years of cultivation, he had an otherworldly temperament. Even though he had deliberately aged her appearance, it still made Zhao Dai, who had just started to understand love, blush and her heart beat faster. Behind Zhao Dai were 2 maidservants of the Zhao mansion. They were both 18 or 19 years old and had pretty features. After serving the Zhao mansion for many years, the 2 maidservants had seen many outstanding talents in Bianliang. They had also seen some who had outstanding looks and talents. However, it was rare to see someone like Ning Fan who had an outstanding temperament. Therefore, it wasn't just Zhao Dai who blushed, even the 2 maids were blushing. They would steal a few glances at Ning Fan from time to time. "Yeah, there's no snow in Bianliang this year and the plum blossoms haven't bloomed yet. This wine is really lonely. Brother Boyang's illness, is it better now?" Ning Fan changed the topic and asked. He had been in Bianliang for 10 years and had known Zhao Boyang for 10 years. They could be considered old friends. For a whole month, Zhao Boyang did not come to the academy to teach. It was said that his old illness had relapsed and it was quite serious. Father's leg disease will act up every year, but it's more serious this year. He can't get out of bed, so he needs someone to take care of him. We've invited some famous doctors, but there's no improvement. Even the barbaric medicine given by Master Man Qi doesn't have any effect. When Zhao thought of her father's sickly appearance, she felt a lump in her throat and her eyes reddened. Leg injury. Don't cry, come with me. Ning Fan stroked Zhao Dai's black hair and pushed the door open to return to the mansion. His subconscious action made Zhao forget to cry. She was already 10 years old, a grown lady. Many aristocratic families in Bianliang had proposed to her, but Ning Fan still treated her like a child and caressed her head casually. It was very rude, but Zhao Dai didn't seem to dislike this feeling. Leaving the two maids outside, Zhao entered the courtyard of the Ning residence alone. The plum blossoms in Bianliang had not bloomed yet, but there was a plum tree in the courtyard that was in full bloom. The plum tree in Uncle's house is so strange. It's different from the one in Bianliang City, Zhao Dai said in surprise. Of course it's different. It's not an ordinary plum tree. Ning Fan smiled and plucked 2 plum blossoms from the tree. One of them had a weaker spiritual qi and he put it on Zhao Dai's hair. As for the other one, he magically put it into a brocade box and gave it to Zhao Dai. Take the plum blossoms in the box and feed it to your father. His leg disease will recover by itself. Don't spread this matter in Bianliang City and don't tell your father that I'm the one who gave him the plum blossoms. Zhao Dai's little head was already in a daze. She didn't hear what Ning Fan said at all. She instinctively took the jade box and lowered her head like an ostrich. There was only one thing in her mind. She was being teased by Uncle Ning. In Bianliang, men and women were not allowed to touch each other, but Ning Fan stroked her hair and put a flower on her head. Her face seemed to be on fire. It was boiling hot and there was only the sound of her heartbeat in her ears. Do you know how to be shy now? Dai has really grown up. It's Uncle who has become frivolous. Ning Fan laughed and shook his head. His bone age had already reached 1,000 years. Zhao would always be a child in front of him. He didn't think about the layer of precaution between men and women before, but now he knew that he had to pay attention to it. He repeated what he had told Zhao Dai just now and reminded her in detail. Only then did he let her leave. Zhao Er's face was still blushing when she walked out of the gate of Ning Mansion. It took her a lot of effort to calm down. She looked at the brocade box in her hand with a face full of disbelief. Why did Uncle give me a plum blossoms? He even said that this plum blossoms can cure father's leg disease. Dai has read many medical books, but I've never heard that plum blossoms can cure leg diseases. Although she didn't believe that plum blossoms could cure leg diseases, she still wanted to give it a try. She brought the plum blossoms back home and gave it to her father to consume. Zhao Boyang's leg disease was obviously incurable, but after he consumed the plum blossoms, his leg disease actually improved day by day. Zhao Boyang kept asking where the plum blossoms came from. Zhao Dai remembered Ning Fan's instructions and didn't speak nonsense. However, this matter still spread in Bianliang City. No one knew what kind of plum blossoms could actually cure great scholar Zhao's chronic leg disease. Zhao was the only one who knew the truth. When she was 10 years old, it was her first time witnessing Ning Fan's inconceivable abilities. When she went to the Ning family again and was about to thank Ning Fan for giving her the plum blossoms, she realized that Ning Fan wasn't at home. Only his wife and daughter were at home. After asking Lu Yan's aunt and immortal lowly sister, Zhao found out that Ning Fan was currently painting at the bank of Bian River. Uncle Ning is painting at Bian River? Zhao Dai felt very surprised. In her impression, Ning Fan seemed to only know how to drink wine and admire plum blossoms. When she arrived at the bank of Bian River and found Ning Fan, she saw him standing beside a flat blue stone that was half the height of a human and looking at an ancient painting. After 10 years of turning into a mortal, Ning Fan finally began to comprehend the truth. The truth of the Tao could not be passed down by word of mouth. Thus, Ning Fan integrated his comprehension of the truth of the Tao into his painting and drew it into a painting to comprehend the truth. The ancient painting that Ning Fan was looking at was a painting that he obtained from the Luo Yun demon sealer Lu Daochen when he was in the 9 divisions of the Lu clan. The content of the painting was the scene where Lu Wu, the demon marshal of the ancient heavenly court, drove a chariot to battle. This painting was drawn by a painting immortal of the ancient heavenly court. It could turn illusions into reality. As long as one activated their magic power, the person in the painting could materialize. This painting contained the comprehension of the truth of the Tao of that painting immortal. Ning Fan stared at the ancient painting for a long time. Then he kept it and took out some paper, ink, brush, and inkstone. He placed them on the blue stone and began to paint. He knew that Zhao had already arrived and was standing beside him. However, at this moment he focused on painting and did not pay attention to her. Zhao Dai also did not disturb him. Ning Fan's painting skills could only be considered ordinary. His skills were far from the highest level. However, his painting contained profound intent realm that was close to the Tao. The most important thing in ink painting was the intent realm. What he painted was the landscape of Bianliang City. Every blade of grass and every tree had already been integrated into his heart in the past 10 years. However, he could only draw the shops on the long street of Bianliang City. He could not draw the hustle and bustle of the city. He could draw the water of the Bian River, but he could not make the water flow. He could draw the bare plum trees on both sides of the river, but he could not make the plum blossoms on the trees bloom. Is it still not enough? Ning Fan sighed softly. He put down the brush and looked at the river in silence. He was still not satisfied with this painting. The reason for his dissatisfaction was that he could not merge the truth into the painting. Zhao's beautiful eyes sparkled with surprise as she looked at Ning Fan's painting. Of course, she did not know anything about the truth of the Tao. In her opinion, Ning Fan's attainments in landscape painting had undoubtedly reached an extremely high level. Every blade of grass and every tree had its own meaning. She did not understand why Ning Fan would sigh when he had clearly drawn a peerless painting. "Uncle, are you not satisfied with this painting?" Zhao Dai did not address Ning Fan as uncle. Her tone seemed to have returned to the intimate manner when they were young. "You noticed it again?" Ning Fan said with a smile. Uncle's brows are almost knitting together. How can Dai not notice it? Zhao Dai smiled sweetly. Suddenly, a thought crossed her mind. Her face turned red and she lowered her head to beg Ning Fan. "Uncle, can you teach Dai how to paint? Dai wants to learn. Isn't your ambition to be a barbarian monk? Why don't you learn the barbarian scripture instead of painting with me? Don't you want to be a barbarian monk anymore?" Ning Fan laughed. "No. Dai's ambition is still to be a barbarian monk. Moreover, Dai has already promised Man Chi." Zhao sighed faintly halfway through her words and did not continue. Ning Fan did not ask further. He just looked at Zhao with interest. He untied the wine gourd on his waist and drank a mouthful of wine. "Uncle, can you teach Dai how to paint?" 5 years. Dai will only disturb Uncle for 5 years. After 5 years, Dai will leave." Zhao's black eyes stared at Ning Fan with a hint of pleading. There was even a hint of muddled emotion in her expression. "All right." Ning Fan nodded. His eyes swept across the plum blossom on Zhao's temple and sighed. After a few days, the plum blossom had already withered. However, Zhao still wore it on her head. Has she grown up? From that day onwards, Zhao would look for Ning Fan to learn how to paint whenever she had free time. Ning Fan would definitely be at the side of the blue stone beside the Bian River. Sometimes he would splash ink and brush, while other times he would ponder in silence. On the 11th year, Ning Fan finally managed to draw a flowing river. On the 12th year, a few red plum blossoms bloomed on the bare plum branches under Ning Fan's brush. On the 13th year, the market in Ning Fan's painting vaguely resounded with noises. On the 14th year, Ning Fan began to draw flying dragons, strange beasts and some living beings in the mountains and seas. On the 15th year, Ning Fan began to draw people. There were many people under his brush. Some were his lovers, some were his close relatives and some were his enemies. All of his memories were integrated into his Tao and drawn on the paper. He did not purposely seek for the truth, but gradually, the Tao charm of reality appeared in his paintings. It had been 15 years since he came to Bianliang. He had already refined 2 of the 7-colored arrow spirits. The mist of the true bridge could no longer obscure Ning Fan's eyes. For the first time in 15 years, Ning Fan felt the call of the true illusion river. At night, Ning Fan sat cross-legged in meditation in his room. His physical body was still at home, but his primordial spirit suddenly rolled up the storage bag and flew up to the night sky of Bianliang. The primordial spirit swayed and tore a hole in the night sky. It stepped in and disappeared into the night sky of Bianliang. Any cultivator who wanted to break through the bottleneck of the crossing truth realm would need their primordial spirit to leave their body and enter the heavenly Tao. At this moment, Ning Fan's primordial spirit was inside the heavenly Tao. What he saw was a long river that seemed both real and illusory. Ning Fan stood at the southern bank of the river. It was a barren land. The northern shore was lush with green grass. If one reached the northern shore, one could successfully break through to the Dujin realm. That long river was called the True Illusion River, and the river was filled with fog that seemed both real and illusory. The current Ning Fan could already see through part of the mist with his eyes. There was not just one true bridge on the True Illusion River, but countless of them. With his current Jinxing, he could see 3,000 true bridges in the mist of the true river. None of the 3,000 true bridges were suitable for the Tao wielder to cross the True Illusion River. The true bridges on the True Illusion River have existed since the formation of the heavenly Tao. The True Illusion River is not even a goose feather's surface. You can't fly across it, swim across it, or use a boat. You can only cross the river by stepping on the bridge. If you reach the northern shore, you will successfully cross the True Illusion River. You have to cross the bridge according to the great Tao that you cultivate. Now, I can see 3,000 true bridges on the True Illusion River. These 3,000 true bridges almost include most of the great Tao in the 4 heavens. Unfortunately, there are no true bridges of Tao wielder. Any cultivator who enters the True Illusion River won't be disturbed by the outside world, but it's extremely difficult to enter the inner part of the heavenly Tao. I've only entered it once in 15 years of my life. Any cultivator only has 9 chances to cross the bridge. Now, I can't see the existence of the true bridges of Tao wielder. I'm afraid that I won't be able to cross the True Illusion River. What a pity. After a night, Ning Fan's primordial spirit withdrew from the inner part of the heavenly Tao and returned to his body. It was impossible for him to enter the inner part of the heavenly Tao again. The next morning, Zhao Dai came to visit Ning Fan to learn painting. She was already 15 years old and her hairpin ceremony would be held 3 days later. Other than learning painting, there was another reason why she came today. It was to inform Ning Fan that she was about to reach the age of 15. To ordinary girls, reaching the age of 15 meant that they had grown up and would soon get married. But to Zhao Dai, reaching the age of 15 meant that she would be accompanied by a green lamp forever and leave Bianliang City forever. She didn't want to get married. Her dream was to become a barbarian monk and protect the weak barbarians who were hurt by wild beasts. In Bianliang City, there were many aristocratic families who proposed marriage to her, but all of them were rejected by Zhao Boyang. Zhao Boyang wasn't an ordinary person. He knew that his daughter had great ambitions, so he naturally gave her his full support. The only problem was that in order to become a barbarian monk, one must go to a big city with a flourishing barbarian temple to learn barbarian techniques. There was only one barbarian monk in Bianliang City and his barbarian technique cultivation base was very weak. It was impossible for him to help his disciples sense the incense of the barbarian technique. Uncle is about to reach the age of 15 and leave Bianliang soon. Will you miss me? Ta stood beside Ning Fan and looked at the snowy scenery in front of her. On the 15th year, it was snowing lightly in Bianliang City. Red plum blossoms bloomed in the snow. Ning Fan was drinking wine and painting in the snow. As he had deliberately changed his appearance, his sideburns were already covered with frost. Zhao looked at his familiar back and the familiar scenery of the Bian River. Her heart felt a little sour and reluctant to part with him. She had grown up, but her uncle was starting to grow old. She had finally reached the age of 15. She was finally going to leave her hometown and work hard to become a barbarian monk. However, why did she feel a little reluctant? I won't die, just leave with peace of mind. I won't miss you. Ning Fan said with a smile. Liar. I don't believe it. Zhao Dai stuck out her tongue. She didn't believe that Ning Fan wouldn't miss her. Uncle, if I become a barbarian monk, I won't be able to marry anyone for the rest of my life. Uncle, can you help me fulfill a small wish? Zhao Dai asked carefully. What wish? Uncle, can you accompany me to wear wedding clothes, eat wedding cakes, ride on the wedding boat and light the wedding lanterns once? Consider it as fulfilling my small wish before I leave? No. But Uncle has never rejected my request before. Why did you reject me this time? Zhao Dai sighed in disappointment. Ning Fan did not answer her. He just drank a mouthful of spiritual wine and put down the brush. His eyes were fixed on the red plum tree. Stingy. Zhao Dai murmured softly. Suddenly, her cheeks turned red and her face turned red. Ning Fan plucked a red plum flower and gently inserted it into her temple. Then he said with a smile, "This plum flower will be your hairpin ceremony gift. I have some matters to attend to these few days. I'm afraid I won't be able to make it in time for your hairpin ceremony. Uncle isn't going to attend my hairpin ceremony?" After hearing Ning Fan's words, Zhao Dai, who was a little shy, immediately became disappointed. Maybe I will come. Maybe I won't. After all, the remains of the thought-shredding savage beast aren't that easy to find. Ning Fan smiled helplessly. Thought-shredding savage beast? What kind of savage beast is that? Zhao Dai's beautiful eyes were filled with confusion. I'll tell you in the future. During these 3 days, Ning Fan was not at home. He had left the city. Zhao came to look for Ning Fan, but she could not find him. When she heard that Ning Fan had left the city, she could not help but feel worried. The barbarian monks of Bianliang knew how to make the barbarian god jade pendant. As long as one wears the pendant, the chances of being attacked by the savage beasts would be reduced. However, it did not mean that one would be safe after sleeping. Zhao did not know what Ning Fan was going to do outside the city. She did not know if Ning Fan had brought the barbarian god jade pendant with him. She was very worried. 3 days had passed and Ning Fan had yet to return. Today was Zhao Dai's hairpin ceremony. As the daughter of great scholar Zhao Tao's hairpin ceremony was naturally very grand. There were countless famous sects in Bianliang who came to attend the ceremony. Not only that, even the only barbarian monk in Bianliang, Great Master Man Qi, had made an exception to attend Zhao Dai's hairpin ceremony. Man Qi naturally would not attend the ceremony when the daughter of an ordinary family reached a marriageable age. However, Zhao Dai was different. She had looked for Man Qi before. According to Man Qi's evaluation, this female cultivator had an extremely high talent in barbarian cultivation. If she is taught by a famous monk, she would certainly become a famous monk in her lifetime and bring prosperity to the wilderness. Man Qi knew that he was not good enough to become Zhao Dai's master. Thus, he recommended Zhao Dai to go to the heavenly barbarian city to learn barbarian techniques. The Heaven Barbarian City was one of the top 10 great barbarian cities in the entire wild ancient region. There were a lot of barbarian monks there. The strength of their barbarian statues was enough to withstand the attacks of any savage beasts. I have already used my barbarian technique to inform a few friends in the Heaven Barbarian City that the barbarian temple there is also very interested in Zhao Dai's talent. It is said that this time, the barbarian temple of the Heaven Barbarian Temple will even send someone to Bianliang to bring this girl to the Heaven Barbarian City. It is enough to show that the barbarian temple of the Heaven Barbarian Temple values this girl. Man Qi thought to himself, Zhao Er's hairpin ceremony was supposed to be happy, but she could not. She was still worried about Ning Fan's safety. She stared blankly at the guests who came to congratulate her. Even though there were many of them, the person she wanted to see the most was not there. "Uncle, where did you go? Is what you are going to do more important than Dai Er's hairpin ceremony? Is Dai Er not important in your eyes?" Zhao Dai Er sighed softly. Suddenly, she raised her head in disbelief as if she had sensed something. After her, Man Chi also raised his head. He had sensed something and looked towards the outside of the Zhao mansion. There was a trace of fear on his face. Outside the Zhao mansion, 12 black horses were galloping in the wind and snow. On each of the horses sat a black-robed monk. "Hand over Zhao De. Otherwise, no one in this mansion will live." The guests who came to congratulate them sent their servants to find out who was so daring to make a ruckus outside the Zhao mansion. However, all the servants who were sent to investigate were killed by the 12 black monks without exception. Their blood splattered on the snowy ground. It's the black barbarian monks. The black barbarian monks who kill without blinking an eye. Why are they here? Some of the knowledgeable guests immediately revealed a look of fear. Among the barbarians, there was a special kind of barbarian who could invoke the power of incense to protect all living beings. They were called the barbarian monks. Most of the barbarian monks took the responsibility of protecting the common people. However, there were also a few barbarian monks who killed for the sake of their own lives. They were the black barbarian monks. No one knew where they heard about Zhao Dai Er's extraordinary innate talent. Today, they came here to kidnap her and force her to join the black barbarian monks. I'll count to 10. If the Zhao mansion doesn't hand over Zhao Dai Er, I'll bring my men and kill my way into the Zhao mansion. The leader of the 12 black monks, an evil old man, laughed evilly. However, he did not notice that there was a silver-haired little loli in the dark who was also laughing evilly. The immortal loli was very happy. It seemed like there was going to be another fight. That you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.